What is up? Welcome back to the Fast Life Podcast. Hope you guys have been having a good time, man. It's been a minute since we've been doing this. Just got back from California with my daughter. It was a great time showing her the West Coast. And then shortly after, we had our camp out, which was a blast. You know, a lot of people kept hitting me up and going, hey, man, how many people showed up? And, you know, my only response to that was just the people that wanted to have a good time. It didn't matter if it was 60 people or 100 people or 600 people. It was just all the right people. It was the people that wanted to get out, wanted to ride, wanted to sit around a campfire, drink some beers, talk shit, talk bikes, talk life, whatever the hell drunk people do. It was just a good time, you know, and it wasn't really something that we were trying to make be some massive event. We just wanted to give people an opportunity to do cool shit. And the people that came did cool shit. You know, Steve from fucking Michigan pounded down there and then left us all in the dirt except for Mark. You know, this dude rode his ass off, and him and Mark were just battling it out, rolling through the Talamina Parkway, which is a fucking nice ass place to ride, man. Like, completely new respect for eastern Oklahoma. This shit is nice down there, and it's an awesome place. Adam Sandoval has a great thing going on down there, so really want to do more of these campouts, and my plan is to kind of branch out and do these campouts in different areas in different parts of the country if I can get enough support from, you know, guys like you and other guys from, or just people that can make shit happen in their areas, you know. I had a really great time, man. All the dudes, all the Anvilate dudes, the DFW Donna Crew dudes, the homies, FXR Mike, fucking Joseph, Joe Kidd came through, you know. It was just a lot of good shit, man. You had the Litas out there. We had a whole bunch of Diner Trash. There was just so much Diner Trash out there. Those fucking dudes. No, but it was just a good time, man. It really was. I couldn't have asked for a better thing. The rain held out. It was nice and cool the whole time, and we all did some miles, and fuck, man, I'm just so thankful that it was just a good time, and that's what it was supposed to be about. So super pumped about that. We're back at the shop, man, or I'm back at the shop, and we're getting things rolling, man. We're getting back on the wagon and knocking out these projects and getting these jobs done and trying to get back ahead of the schedule. And so it's slow motion, but it's happening. It's taking place, and we're doing it. We're getting back to it. Yeah, man, it feels good to be doing a podcast again. So hopefully I got a couple more coming up for you soon that's going to be pretty good as well. But this one I'm excited for you to hear. Anyway, before we get to that, we're going to go ahead and jump into these you know, those things that we do to help pay for this stuff. I want to thank Texas Performance, you know, Mark, Cedar Park, Texas. Check him out, Dyno Tuning Performance for your V-Twin. You know, get down there and get dialed in. Mark literally performs on, I don't even know right way to say this. He pretty much just blew us all in the dirt. Still not the right way of saying it. Mark's a riding motherfucker. Let's just put it like that. When he tells you a suspension works, or he tells you a tire works, or he tells you this works, it's because he's beat it to the ground and he knows whether or not it works. So I really don't even know if that's the right way to do this ad. But for anyway, Mark is a rider, tester, tuner. So everything he's doing out of his shop is legit. You know what I mean? Everything he's building, everything he's doing to these bikes, he's just really putting it to the test. You know, so when he has an opinion about something, it's legit. It's like tested. It's not just a opinion based on his thoughts. It's opinion based on his experiences with the products that he's installed on his bike. So that's something you can really respect about a company that's trying to tell you what's a better product or what's a better route to go on your bike. So, you know, if performance is your thing and you want to build something on your bike that is more along the lines of that, then before you start spending shit on the internet, spending money, call Mark up. Sit down, come by his shop, talk to him, tell him what you want to do and the way you want to ride. And he's going to help you dial that bike in the way it needs to be done. So check him out on Instagram, Texas Performance MC, TexasPerformanceMC.com. And just, you know, fuck with your boy, right? I also want to thank Paint Hut for Metal Flake. Hopefully you guys checked out his podcast we finally got to do a couple weeks ago. Had a lot of great response, all you painters out there. I hope you enjoyed that. It was just good, man. I like that dude. I like his company. He's coming out with some new colorways as we speak. He's continuing to build his brand, you know, his flakes, his community he's building. I mean, the dude's doing a lot of shit for the paint industry, and if he's not already, he's definitely going to be something. He's building some type of legacy, like he talked about in his podcast, that he can be proud of, and I'm proud of him. So check out painthuffer.com if you want to get some flakes, and Paint Huffer Metal Flake on IG if you just want to, just see what their flakes are about, see what the Team Paint Huffer's about, see just a lot of cool paint jobs and a lot of cool shit. Check them out, please. I also want to thank Horsepower Inc. up in Indianapolis. I think they got themselves moved into this new shop. I know they got to do the 115th, and that Softail they built for that, and their business is rolling and they're booming, and I'm seeing pipes getting made on Instagram, so I think that shit's coming down the line. Hopefully you're following them, Horsepower Inc. on Instagram and Horsepower Inc. Indy on Facebook. And of course, if you want to get some products, you can always go to horsepowerinc.net and order some of the swag they got, some of the air cleaners, the throttle body, the complete setups. I'm currently looking at getting a Road Glide right now. I know I keep going back and forth, but if this happens, then I'm going to end up probably lacing it up with as much Horsepower Inc. stuff I can get my hands on to make this new 19 Road Glide perform and do what it do, right? Dyno tuning and performance for V-twin motorcycles. These dudes got it all in Indianapolis, so check them out. Don't leave them hanging. Don't leave me hanging. Let them know you heard about them on this podcast, and keep the ball rolling. Thank you. Also, Hard Drive, American V-Twin products, hdtwin.com. If you want to get set up as a dealer, if you want to let your homies know that have a shop that ain't set up, try to get some more dealers. We're trying to get more dealers with this so that people can, just see the type of products that they make, or not make, they have out there for you to be able to push to your customers to help, fine tune with what your customers want for their bikes. They got great companies like Brass Balls and Jesse Rook, and I think they have Forbidden, they just Lindahl. They just got a lot of great things in there that are, companies that you're not going to find in Drag or Tucker. So it's just good to have all these different catalogs and all these different options as to best suit the needs of your customers, right? hdtwin.com. Get set up. Hard Drive Parts on Instagram if you want to check out some of the shit that they got in the books. Man, I haven't done ads in a while. That was hard. I need to practice that. Anyway, thank you guys for checking out this podcast. Appreciate all you new listeners. I've been seeing the growth in our numbers, and I'm super thankful, man. That's super motivating. Makes you want to keep doing this shit harder. Hopefully you guys are following us on Instagram at the Fast Life Garage. If you want to also check out my personal one, it's Fast Life Jace. And our website, fastlifegarage.com. You can get a link to our Patreon, where if you want to help support this podcast and support the growth of what we're trying to do with all this media, you can pledge $1, $5, $10, $1 million. I don't know I don't know how you ball. I don't know, but anything helps, man. If all the listeners that I have right now, if all of you just gave me 50 cents, I'd be balling. I wouldn't be balling, but I'd be able to, do some things. This it's just growth. But at any rate, I'm happy for what I do have. I'm happy that you guys are still checking this out, and I'm just stoked. I'm stoked because a lot of you guys listen to this podcast, and then next thing you know, I'm hanging out with you at a camp out. That's just dope. Anyway, this podcast is a road tripping episode. Been a couple months in the making. My boy has been out of town. He's been on the road. He rode from Dallas all the way up to Alaska, and he did it in 69 days. So this dude, he had a lot of shit. He experienced a lot of things, and we tried to best, cover, document the trip and the towns, and and just, it's a massive trip, man. It's just awesome. I'm super, I wouldn't say jealous. I want to do something like that, but I'm just happy that he did, and I'm happy that he's going to share this, that he is sharing this stuff with you guys, and you can check it out and hopefully find inspiration for your trip, even if it is just in the lower 48, and that's kind of what these road tripping podcasts are about, is to kind of inspire you to want to get on a ride, or to create a ride for you and your homies. Be the guy that says, you know what, I want to do this shit, and then, do it, right? That's all you got to do, right? That's the easiest part. Anyway, just check him out. Here he is. Welcome back to the podcast, guys.
Hey, guys. You ready to let the dogs out?
Fast Life Podcast.
Let's see what see some of the places you stopped at and whatnot. And but the bigger thing that I liked on your Instagram is like, when did you start going to Colombia back in the day? Like, how did that whole thing start kicking off?
Yeah. So I was at a job that I'd been at for maybe 5 years or so. Mm-hmm. And I was just to the point where it was kind of stale for me. So I decided one day I was going to start saving up some money and just do a backpacking trip.
For real? That's what it was?
And I kind of wanted to learn, I've always wanted to learn Spanish as well. And so that kind of played into it. But, the time came and it was, quite scary. Mm-hmm. I even remember to this day getting to Colombia. Mind you, I'd traveled beforehand. I'd been to Mexico and I'd been to Mexico City and been to Costa Rica, mm-hmm. Places. Mexico City's a little rough around the edges, but it's a big city too, right?
Yeah.
And it's close to the U.S. Everybody speaks English, mm-hmm. type of thing. But, man, I landed in Medellin, Colombia at the airport, and no one spoke English. No one. And I instantly got really nervous. But luckily I had met a guy on the plane that was Colombian that spoke English and coming from Miami, spoke English and Spanish. Mm-hmm. And he kind of helped me get a taxi mm-hmm. to my hostel where I was staying. And, I made it safely. And after that, it was kind of one of those things where I would leave the hostel when I felt comfortable.
Yeah.
And I had classes to go to, Spanish classes. So, after a few days, you kind of learn the ropes. And
it gets kind of. What time frame was this? Whenever you went there the first time?
2012. October 2012, and I stayed in South America for, I think it was like 9 months.
9 months.
Yeah. So I started in Colombia, flew directly from Dallas, layover Miami, flew into Medellin, and then I stayed in Colombia, I think, initially for 2.5, 3 months. And that's when it kind of like, in Colombia, man, Colombia has more motorcycles mm-hmm. in South America than any other country in South America, maybe even in the Western Hemisphere.
Sure.
There's motorcycles, hundreds, thousands of them.
Yeah.
Even at the stoplights, they all lane split, they pull up to the front.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of like a free-for-all.
Yeah. And they're all cheap, $1,000 Indian, Chinese manufactured motorcycles.
Yeah.
But,
what was it about Colombia that you specifically wanted to go there? Of all Brazil and Argentina?
So Brazil speaks Portuguese. Again, it was mainly me wanting to learn Spanish. Mm-hmm. Colombia, I knew I had been told from a friend who had lived there in Medellin that it was a beautiful city, mm-hmm. beautiful weather, and really cheap. So and again, not really no one spoke English. So that's why I chose Colombia, chose Medellin, and started taking classes there. But that was the main reason why I chose Colombia.
Just basically go there and learn Spanish.
Right, Spanish, yeah.
That's cool.
And I took classes. Initially, I took classes at a university that was really expensive, private university, and like these really, uppity classes for there. Mm-hmm. It was like $300 a month, which is expensive, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't think I was learning anything. Stayed there 2 months. And then I just said, okay, I'm done. I'm not learning anything. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try something else. But little did I know that was kind of setting the stage kind of for the initial learning process of kind of setting a base for my Spanish.
Yeah, because I remember 2012 because, like I said, I remember everybody I've been telling about you, I was like, man, I've been friends with this dude on Instagram since Instagram started.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because right around the same time it started, 2012 is when you were there. Mm-hmm. So all your pictures were like these dope ass places out there.
Right.
And so did you pretty much stay in Colombia the whole time, or did you kind of travel around?
Yeah. So again, I spent 8 or 9 months in South America, but I spent the initial 2 months in Colombia, mm-hmm. and then I spent, I think, an extra month there after I quit my classes, because I had friends there by that time and everything, and I'd met a quote-unquote girl who's now my wife. But, yeah. And then I went down to Ecuador, took a bus, and mind you, I never took a plane. Once I flew into Colombia, I never took another plane mm-hmm. Around South America. Took a bus down through Colombia, through the southern part, into the border of Ecuador, and then that's kind of where, Ecuador's complete opposite of Colombia.
For real?
It's not like Canada, U.S., where we're similar. It's, yeah. So... into Ecuador, I spent a few weeks traveling through Ecuador, quite a small country. They use American currency, so it was a little easier. Yeah, but again, no one speaks English.
Is it still Spanish? Or
yeah.
Yeah. Where does the Portuguese start mainly?
Brazil. Just only Brazil. And it starts on the borders as well. Okay. The borders of Brazil, and Brazil touches...
everything.
Yeah, it's huge. But it touches multiple countries, and, the residents on those borders are generally speaking, or at least know a little bit of Portuguese if they're from, say, Colombia.
How's like the just like the safeness of it? Is it like is it friendly enough to where you?
It is, man. Yeah, I mean, it's again, every city is going to have its bad parts, just like Dallas does. But you start realizing even Latin people, and again, I don't really know many cultures like Asian cultures and stuff, but in my experience traveling, those people, man, you meet are the nicest people. They will, I mean, literally, for example, again, living in Colombia, I had no permanent home, so I was washing my clothes just like at a lavanderia, like a laundromat.
Yeah.
And this lady asked me what I was doing, and I told her, hey, I'm just backpacking, kind of learning Spanish. And she spoke perfect English. I think she lived in the U.S. for a while. She had money. And she let me stay at her house, which is in the country. It's called a finca in Colombia. She let me stay there for free by myself. She gave me the keys. She went back to her place, wherever she was at when I was washing clothes, and brought me keys and brought me the directions how to get to her house, and I stayed there for like a week. Yeah. No, didn't pay anything. And then I just brought her keys back when I got back to Medellin.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's
I've
Latin
heard
people.
so many stories about just people when they travel in general, how open people are, like of wanting, opening up their houses, their homes, and things like that.
They are, man.
I've heard a lot of stories about it, especially guys on bikes and stuff too, where they got those like couch surfing apps and shit like that. But that is pretty awesome though. That they're like, hey, here.
Yeah, me and my buddy here in Dallas, he used to do it more than me, but we would. We would host our apartment to couch surfers, and you meet some of the coolest people.
I think you would too, for sure.
It's just like you meet like girls traveling solo from Australia over to Hawaii we met a group of girls from Germany, a group of guys that were in a band, rock band that were playing here in Dallas that stayed with us. Like 5 guys just pile into your living room. Obviously it doesn't smell well after that, but I mean, just meeting them and going out, having beers, and just talking.
Yeah, just hearing their story, their travels and shit. I mean, I'm an advocate, man. I tell people all the time, it's like the more people you can talk to and different people, the more you can take and build yourself on. So it's like, with those people coming through your house with their stories and what encourages them to travel, that shit has to have rubbed off on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does, man. I mean, there's traveling makes you rich in a way money cannot make you rich. Yeah, so that's what I like to tell people. But after Ecuador, I went into Peru, stayed about a month in Peru, started studying Spanish more, and then I kind of went into the edge of Bolivia. Bolivia is really poor, and by that time I was kind of worn out. 6 months into it or whatever, and then I kind of made a U-turn and then went back up through Peru into the Amazon.
How was that?
Yeah, Amazon, man, is amazing. I went into the city called Iquitos, which is, I'll never forget this city. It's the largest city at the time. It may still be the largest city in the world that was not accessible by road. So you either had to go on boat up the Amazon, or up one of the entry rivers to the Amazon, or fly in. And obviously I flew in, but it's like flying over the ocean. When you're up high enough,
trees,
it just looks like the ocean. And then you come down, you're like, that's green, not blue.
Well, I had saw a picture on your Instagram where it's like this big ass rock, and it looks like it has like little zigzag stairs going all the way up. Where was that at?
That is outside of Medellin.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It's called Guatapé. It's actually, I don't know how that rock got there. It's really alien-like, but
So it's not like, it's just more like it's there?
Yeah, it's just literally you're driving, and in most of Colombia, the roads are really curvy. They're motorcycle roads, man. Curvy, it's green, a lot of rain every day, but they're really curvy roads. And so you're driving along, and all of a sudden you look in the distance, and there's this rock that's 300, 400, 500 feet tall. Yeah. There's no other big rock like that around there. But what kind of draws you to that area is there's a man-made lake there. again, it's really hilly, so they dammed up this area and flooded it out, and that is the hydroelectric dam for Medellin. Yeah, so it provides power over to that area.
So when you went into that city, like, so you flew in, so you didn't really get to do too much of the Amazon or any of that.
So I flew I flew into Iquitos. I stayed there for a few days. It's really a rugged town, really poor. It's a fishing town, and then I took a boat from Iquitos back into Colombia. So there's a tri-country border. Peru, Brazil, and Colombia all meet together in the Amazon, right north of Iquitos. And I mean, there's no border control there. You just get off the boat in Peru, and they drop you on. Obviously, coming from Iquitos, they drop you into Peru. I forgot the name. I think it's a weird name in that town. I think it's called Benjamin Constance or something weird like that. They drop you there, then you take a boat across, and I was going back to Colombia. So you just jump off the boat, walk into Colombia. Then if you want to walk over to Brazil, the language changes right across the border, and there's no police, nothing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but again, you're in the middle of the Amazon.
Yeah,
so.
it's different there.
Yeah.
It's kind of a pain in the ass just getting in there and doing that.
Right.
You were talking about doing another trip or like going down through Mexico next year, right? Just riding.
So, I mean, me and the wife have talked. I want to move back to Colombia at least for a little bit to try to live there because I just enjoy, obviously anyone would enjoy living in a different country for a little bit to experience it, but I love Colombia so much, and she's from Colombia, her family's there, and we've talked about moving back there, but she's wanting to finish school first here, and so that's kind of what's holding us back. But the trip from here to Colombia would require me to ride through Mexico. The other option is for me, before we go back to Colombia, and again, I'm talking about riding my bike when we move there from here to Colombia, and just leaving my bike there, or just riding through Mexico next year, because Mexico's huge, and it's got so much to offer. I've never been all through Mexico, but I've never ridden a bike through Mexico. So
yeah, I want to do that pretty bad. I mean, it seems way more for me at least, because like I said, getting into Canada is off the table for me.
Yeah.
So it's like getting into Mexico seems like it would be a lot easier, but I've watched so many videos on YouTube of guys doing bikes through there and just, kind of, just making their way through it. And, I don't know if I have those kind of balls, man.
Oh, of course you do. Like I said, a lot of it's just propaganda crap you see on the news, man. Yeah. I mean, no one's going to mess with you. As long as you're not dabbling in stuff you shouldn't be dabbling in, no one's going to fuck with you, man.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, again, someone may try to steal your bike if you're in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time at night or something, but... And I've had I had a guy who was riding a BMW in Medellin, a buddy of mine there. And I think he was Asian. I think he was from Korea or something. He had his bike stolen in Medellin at gunpoint. So never seen the bike again.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What was like you were telling me the other day that I painted a sport bike for you way back in the day. Yeah. And you still haven't showed me which one.
Yeah, I'd have to dig that picture up.
So when you went to we painted that bike, that was like 2006 or 5 or some shit like that.
Way back, yeah.
Like when you went out of town, did, bikes get put on hold for a couple of years just so you could travel and learn these other things? Or? Yeah,
and I mean, I started riding when I was in college. My first bike was a 2001 R6. So I didn't know anything. I'd ridden like mopeds and little dirt bikes as a kid.
Are you from Dallas originally? Or
I'm from Waxahachie. Okay. So yeah, Ellis County.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, so... and I can remember my dad having a dirt bike as a kid, but, my first sport bike was an R6, and then I sold that, and then I bought that ZX-10R. Yeah. Both of those bikes had been laid down. They were both used. Again.
Just got them cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the, leading up to you getting this BMW that you got now, what was kind of the inspiration to go that route? Like, was it the traveling that you did originally and seeing the other bikes? I mean,
it was the traveling, combining the traveling with two things I love: traveling and motorcycles. And when you're on a motorcycle, you're going to see, you have a panel view,
Yeah.
And you feel everything.
Yeah, I feel like you have you're undistracted. Yeah. You're absorbing everything in because there's no, you can't be, riding your bike down the road on your phone and,
right.
you can't really be engaged in a conversation with someone else. So it's like you're really just soaking it up and being forced to experience it.
And when the
know what I mean?
temperature changes by 1 degree, you feel it. And
Yeah.
it's those you're not messing with the radio and stuff like that. So
what was the so you got back here 2013ish from Colombia.
Yep, summer 2013.
And then you picked up this BMW. So what made you go with the BMW? We've been talking about that shit a lot.
So I started actually with a KLR 650 Thumper, big single cylinder bike, and that thing has no power. It's good on back roads. It's super good on low power, but as soon as you get on any sort of highway, you're getting ran over pretty much, and it's super loud. It'll vibrate your balls off.
Damn.
So it just didn't have enough power for me, and then I had went from that to a big boy to a 1100 GS BMW.
Yeah, the older one you were telling me about. Yeah,
and I didn't. Man, that thing was just it was like a pig. It just didn't feel right underneath me. And again, I'm a smaller guy, so I'm 150 pounds soaking wet. But I was still tall enough to touch, but the bike just felt like a pig to me. And then I had troubles with the final drive, like I was telling you, which I'm a chain guy. The newer GSs, I've heard that problem's fixed. And actually today, even BMW released on their Instagram the new GS 1250.
Oh, yeah, the bigger one now?
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't check
the 2019.
Nice.
It's got variable drive. It's got obviously all kind of stuff upgrades, but bigger motor. I think it went from 1170s to like a 1250 cc. Damn. So, and then I just wanted to go back to a chain bike from the KLR to the BMW. So I went with the 850. Or the 800, I'm sorry. The new ones are the 850s. And it just felt perfect to me. It was smooth. I mean, the thing, even at 80 miles an hour, the bike's smooth. Yeah. Anything over 80, it starts feeling like KLR again. But
you got those big ass. Do you think it's more of the tires? Because you're running those dirt tires.
I'm running, like I said, the 60/40s. They're actually called Haida now. Really good tire. It's tube tire on that bike. I had no problems with those tires.
For real?
Yeah, and they have really good ratings. But yeah, went with the BMW because again, BMW's known to have really good, reliable bikes.
Yeah.
It was between that and a KTM, but I just had the BMW and I just went with the F800 GSA. It's got a bigger tank. I think it's got like a 6.5 gallon tank on it.
So you're getting some miles on that one.
Yeah, and tanks underneath the seat on my model. So the new 850, they put it back up between the legs, but it's under the seat, and I love it, man.
So I mean, did you when you bought this 800 earlier? You got it earlier this year, right, or last year, right? Right at the end of the year or something.
Yep.
Had you already been planning this trip that you took this year?
I inside I had been planning it. I kind of felt like I didn't know if I was going south or north. And then I kind of brought the idea to my wife, and she didn't balk at it. So I was like, okay, well then I'm going to start digging a little deeper. And then it came to the point where I had to decide where I wanted to go, and
So what made you pick going to Alaska? Like, what was the thought process in that?
Yeah, so I knew that eventually I'm going to ride south. Either way, I'm riding south. So, and it's probably going to be when we move back to Colombia. So why not go north?
Yeah.
I'd never been to Alaska. My wife wanted to go to Alaska as well, and so I decided, hey, if you let me ride up there, you can fly up and meet me once I get there.
Nice.
So, and that was kind of the icing too. She was like, okay, we'll go ahead, and off I went. So you were gone. You left July 20th, right? June 20th. Yeah, June 20th.
And you're gone. You said 69 days, right?
Yeah.
So how did you? There had to be a lot of preparation to be able to take that far. Fortunately, you own your own business and stuff, so you're able to kind of move things around. But just the planning, you know what I mean? It's got to be a lot of
pre-planning, most definitely. The biggest thing is kind of getting yourself prepped for, because I've rode motorcycles for 10 years, 20 years, whatever now, but getting yourself prepped to being in the seat every day like that for 5 to, I rode 12 hours some days, so And on a bike like that, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's a big bike.
Yeah, that and you're in an upright sitting position. You know, it's rear set, so it's not the most comfortable. And just the planning of, you know, hey, am I going to plan where I'm going to sleep tonight? You know, where do I want to? What things do I want to see? You know, you can't plan too much in reality though, because you're going to let yourself down if you start planning too much. So I had these specific points that I wanted to see, places that I wanted to see, but you know, other than that, it's kind of just doing a lot of research, getting your gear together.
Yeah.
What you're going to bring with you.
So would you end up like packing for yourself? I mean, you got those like those Pelican style bags on that bike.
Panniers, those are BMW branded hard cases on the side. I got a hard case in the back. So one pannier was my clothes, and I bought, I don't know the name, there's a liner that you can buy, because those panniers are aluminum. And if anything you put in an aluminum box, it's going to rub, that aluminum's going to rub off onto that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's almost like a black.
Yeah, it's like you're polishing it. So,
right.
Yeah.
So I had a liner on my clothes side, filled one side up with clothes, other side was just miscellaneous tools, loaded everything up, and the back behind me was just food.
Just food?
Yeah, really just food and just little things.
Yeah, I saw you had like a, what are those things, fucking, I'm losing my word here, those damn camera things that fly.
Yeah, drone.
Yeah.
Yeah, DJI, yeah. So I had a drone as well, and that rode in the side with the tools. And, you know, I packed everything, and then I unpacked everything. Mm-hmm. And then I took a few things out, and then I repacked everything, pulled it back out, cleaned it up again. Because, I mean, in reality, again, you're on a bike for 2 or 3 months. You want to ride as light as possible, especially if you're going to be doing off-road stuff. And so I kind of downsized, and then brought what I thought I would need. Again, I'd never done anything like this. Furthest I've ever rode is to the other side of Texas, to like Big Bend or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, over time, I realized I still had too much shit. I was like, I got to get rid of some of this. So I would pitch tools and stuff randomly. And I mean, other than that, man, just planning tools and then planning these little spots you want to see, right?
Yeah.
And then on the road, I would just say, okay, I'm going to ride 5 hours. Mm-hmm. That's going to give me whatever mileage, 300 miles, whatever. And I would kind of look for a place to camp on my phone for that day. Some days I would plan it in advance, depending if I was going to be staying in a park, like some of these national parks in the U.S., Yosemite, mm-hmm. Yellowstone, those require planning. You have to pre-plan because the camps sell out.
Yeah.
So I would pre-plan those. But other than that, I mean, it was.
Yeah. So the day you left, I mean, I was kind of writing down your path. So you left here and you went straight to New Mexico. Did you just take like 380 over or something like that?
Yeah, I don't remember what I took. I used to work in Weatherford for a company, so I kind of knew mineral wells in that
mm-hmm.
area. So I cruised up. I don't know what the highway that is. Maybe 380. I don't know. Goes through, what is that, Possum Kingdom, through the lake and all that over there.
Yeah, I think 380 is higher, but you just stayed back roads pretty much off.
I did, all the way to New Mexico. I didn't jump on 20 at all. And rode all the way over to Roswell.
Mm-hmm. That's off 380.
Right, okay. Yeah, so I kind of cut up then. But
that first place you stopped there looked like a pretty dope spot. I'd ride through there all the time, never even knew it was there.
So my first stop was Ruidoso. It took 12 hours or 11 hours or so to get there. And I was just putting around. Mm-hmm. Set up camp, found this place up in the mountains that was, and the whole trip I was kind of looking for camps that were cheap, you know. You got a budget, and so found this cheap place to camp. Pulled in, there was nobody there. There was no host or anything. So I just set up camp, parked my bike, and stayed the night there. Woke up next morning, there was still nobody there. So I just packed up. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't pay anybody. So the first night I camped for free in a campsite. Mm-hmm. But it was a primitive camp. There was no water or anything. The drop, whatever they call them, the vault toilets.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
So you just piss in a hole, basically. And so that night stayed there, and then next morning I cruised into Roswell, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd never been to New Mexico, so
Damn.
went through Roswell, checked out the weird alien stuff. Really fucking hot. I remember that. And then jumped back on and cruised up from Roswell onto the north side of that military base, whatever it is. I think it's one of the largest military bases in the U.S. Yeah. And that was like desolate out there. Really crazy. And
We
then
almost hit a moose going through there once.
Really?
In the middle of the night. It was just sitting in the road.
Wow.
And there's no lights out there, so it was just we were just lucky we were going. Yeah.
Cruising from Roswell to...
No, we were coming back from, or I don't know if it was a moose. It might have just been a huge ass deer.
I was about to say, because moose, I don't think moose...
Yeah, I don't think
it's probably an elk.
Something big.
Yeah.
It seemed bigger than a deer.
Yeah. Well, whitetail don't get that big compared to an elk. It was probably
An elk?
Probably an elk,
Okay, yeah. So I think I saw something like that on the side of the road. We were coming back from Phoenix.
Yeah.
And we just didn't want to do 20 or 10.
Right.
You know, we wanted to kind of see. There's a lot of, man, the mountains between, like, Phoenix, if you go through, like, the center part of Phoenix to Texas,
Right,
like, right through the center
yeah.
of Arizona and Mexico, man, there's so much nice shit.
Yeah.
Because all the cities are, like, north and south, and there's, like,
Right.
the center that's just, like, nothing going on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. So...
What was that place called? That national monument there in New Mexico? It was like bad. What is it?
Shiprock?
No. Before the other place before
Badlands? No.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I don't know.
They had all those holes in the wall. It looked like people used to dwell in there or something like that.
Yeah. So that is up north of Albuquerque, north of Santa Fe, close to Santa Fe. I don't remember the name of the place, but that was actually the first national park I visited on the trip. That was my third day, because I stayed in Albuquerque as well because I wanted to see. I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan, so I had to see all the Breaking Bad monuments, the houses, and
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you could see it all there. That's
yeah,
dope.
man, that's some weird shit going on. Albuquerque in general it's a cool city, but it's like a keep Albuquerque weird city. You know what
For
I mean?
real?
Yeah.
Damn, I got a homie that lives there. It's
Yeah.
super cool, but you know, we usually passing through. It's like one
There's
of those
not much
crossroads.
there.
You know?
It's a big city that's in the middle of nowhere. There's not much there, but you know, I stopped by Walt's house and Jesse's house, and stopped by some of just the other, you know.
How'd you find out?
I looked online, Wikipedia or whatever
real?
it is. Yeah,
That's cool.
I pulled up to Walt's house, and there was like 4 cars parked outside taking pictures.
So someone still lives there? Or is it
Someone lives there, and there's a fence that's blocked off the house. There's cones in the road, like on the curb in front of the house where you can't park in front. It's obviously, it's an older couple that lives there. They keep the garage door open, and they just sit out there. So it's kind of ruining your picture type thing. But they just sit out there, and I've heard they actually flip people off when they take pictures. But they just sit out there and get pictures taken of themselves.
That's pretty fucking cool, though.
Yeah.
I remember when that show ended and he died, they had RIP signs up in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
It was like, that was pretty cool.
It's huge there, man. And then, you know.
It's the only fucking thing that put that city on the map, really, ever.
Right. There's, like I said, there's nothing there.
It's like we got Walker Texas Ranger over here.
Yeah. And then, I mean, from there I drove up to Santa Fe, which is a beautiful city.
Dude, we stayed there before. It's so nice up there.
It's so different. It feels like you're kind of in an old Indian pueblo or something.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so crazy how different it is from like Las Cruces down south. Mm-hmm. Like every city you go north, it's almost like it's just way different cultures almost.
Yeah.
It seems like in some areas. And then the more northwest you get, the more you start getting around all the drunk Indians.
Exactly. That's 100% true. Man, so yeah, through Santa Fe, I decided to go to that national park there where it's just an old, I forgot what tribe lived there, but they lived in these high, literally super high dwellings on cliffside. They would dig holes out or in natural holes, whatever. But that was the first national park I visited. And I think I told you can buy a pass. So every national park has an entry fee.
Yeah, so
there's
I
a
had
yearly
that for,
pass.
yeah.
Yeah, and I bought that for $80, and that thing paid for itself probably 5 times.
Yeah, because I mean, we did that last year when we went through Grand Canyon. I was like, oh shit, I'm going to Sturgis again. Didn't go to Sturgis again.
Yeah,
and you know, because there's national parks there too, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I did it too. But even though it was still like, you know, what if? Because we were going to go through the Yosemite as well. That's a national park, right?
Right. Yosemite was my favorite national. Yosemite and Denali in Alaska.
Yeah.
Yosemite though blew my mind. It's just come out of nowhere, man.
So so you went to Shiprock. Now I've driven by that. I didn't. Yeah. You went up to it. You rode up to it. So
I had a pretty crazy experience there too. So a buddy of mine, who lives in Austin, does a lot of traveling, and he recommended. And I knew what Shiprock was. I'd seen pictures on Instagram. You know, Instagram kind of ruins these hidden places, but as you come up to Shiprock, you can see it in the distance, and it's like just this massive rock, kind of like Guatapé in Colombia. It's just this massive rock coming out of nowhere. And so I rode up to it and parked my bike, and I had the drone and stuff, and taking some pictures. And it's on Indian territory.
Yeah.
Right? I guess Navajo, or is it Navajo or Cherokee? I want to say it's Navajo Nations is what it is. Yeah. So they're really strict with what you can do. They say no drones, obviously no drinking. You're not supposed to drink anywhere on a reservation. But yet there's fucking beer bottles, literally, drunk Indians everywhere, like you said. But so I was like, you know what? I'm going to ride up to the side of the rock because it looks pretty crazy. And so I started riding. I realized it was way further than it seemed because it's so fucking big. Yeah. And then in the distance, and this is in the middle of nowhere, like you know, in the distance, I see this Indian dude walking towards me. Like I'm in the middle of nowhere. And he's just walking towards me from the rock. So I stop because I know I'm not supposed to be. There's signs that say don't go any further than the parking lot. So I'm on this dirt road riding out to this rock, and there's this guy walking towards me. So I just stop, and I debated it for a minute, and I just turned around. I wasn't gonna.
It seemed like the pictures you got were pretty close, though.
Yeah, no,
they weren't.
Mile, 2 miles away, easy. It's all dirt road, so that place is creepy, man. I don't know. The Indians believe that people used to live on top of it, and that part of the rock broke, or there was an earthquake or something, and people died up there, and it's haunted. So
yeah, it's weird when you look at like lots of pictures online of it. It's like this thin layer of rock, almost like a wall.
It is, yeah. But it goes in a triangle, so it's a triangle. If you look at it closely,
I didn't see that.
It's almost like the rock comes out of the ground, and then there's from the left and right side. If you're looking at it from the south to the north, on the left and right side, there's that wall, and then on the south side, there's that wall. The south side of it, though, is a much taller, more, I guess, pronounced. But that rock is just weird, dude. I don't know how it was formed.
Yeah, we just ended up riding by it because, you know, you pass that when you're on your way up to, like, the Four Corners and everything. Right. So when we were going that way, we saw it. We saw the signs for it because you see the signs when you're in, what is it, Farmington right there? Right. But then, you know, it's like, for us, it's like, let's go to the Four Corners. That's way, you know, like we can touch that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But no, so after you left there, which did you go up through the Four Corners and go into like?
Well, no, I didn't go into Colorado.
Oh, you didn't?
I cut directly over south, or I directly over directly west, and then cut up through Monument Valley. Yeah.
So you went through Monument Valley south to north.
Correct.
Instead, because see, I got this weird thing when I ride places and I'm taking people for the first time. Like Monument Valley's one, and San Francisco on the Bridge is one. Certain places, it's like, if you've never seen these places before, I like to bring people in a specific way, right? So that when they come around this rock or this tunnel or around this mountain, the view hits you, and you're like coming into it, as opposed to, like, say if you're the first time you ever go to San Francisco and you've never been there before, and you're riding or whatever the case may be, and you just take the Bay Bridge to San Francisco. Right. Then you see it. You see the bridge is kind of like it's there the whole time. But if you never like do Oakland, you stay kind of in the Central Valley, then you cut over and take a San Rafael Bridge or some shit like that. You can kind of cut around the 101, and then you literally don't see the bridge hardly at all. It's not really in focus. And then when you're on the 101, you go through this tunnel, and right when you are coming around the curve of the tunnel,
I remember that.
Bam, it's right there. Yep. And it's, to me, it's the coolest way to see the bridge.
Yeah.
But same thing for Monument Valley. Like, if you come from Mexican Hat down, once you get over that it's like 40 miles. Once you get over a couple of those hills, then bam, you start seeing that road, and like it all just, you soak it up.
It comes back to you, especially with the whole Forrest Gump thing. Yeah. So I came in from the south, and I knew I was getting close, so I kept pulling over, and, you know, I'd take a picture, blah, blah, blah. Well, one time, as you've seen on the Instagram, I pull over in the wrong area, and I hit sand, deep sand, not realizing it. And it was a pull-off, you know, or a pull-out, whatever they call it, and it was not made for my bike. Yeah. And I ate shit right there.
There's a spot looking south where there's like a little shack on the side of the road, and then lots of little like turnouts where people like get on, and you have a good view of it. I took a pictures of my baggers there before. That's about it. But.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So, but where I laid it, my bike, that was the first time I laid the bike down on the trip. It was like day 4. So I was like, I'm in for it, I guess. But from coming south, I laid the bike over. Once I got the bike back up, I kept riding, and I had met a guy that was on another BMW, and he was from Phoenix, and he had been through that area, so he knew everything. He's like, well, you're coming the wrong way, but once you get to the top of the hill, we can turn around, and you can ride back south, and then you can see the view.
But so you rode up to Mexican Hat, though, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so that place is cool, too.
Oh, Mexican Hat's like Martian, man.
It is. Yeah, it's super weird.
That was one of the craziest landscapes I've seen on that whole trip, but... so coming out from south north, we went into Mexican Hat, like I said, and then I turned around and then rode back down into Monument Valley from the north.
So Mexican Hat is where on my last trip out there is where I lost my axle nut for my swing arm.
Whoa.
And
yeah, I remember you saying that. I didn't know it was there.
I lost it. I realized it was there, but I actually looked at pictures I took of my bike on the gas stop before, which was at the border of Colorado and Utah. So it was like 60 miles.
By Moab or something?
Not that far north.
Far north.
It's way further south. I forgot what it was called. But so I took pictures there, and then of the bike, but I wasn't paying attention. It wasn't a gas stop that I was doing a maintenance check.
Was the nut backed off halfway?
No, it was gone.
Oh, it was already gone.
It was gone. So when I realized it was gone, it was still in there. Like the axle was still in there. It didn't like start walking out or anything.
Yeah.
But then now that I know it's fucked up, I'm like, tripping on it. But we had a camp reservations at Monument Valley over on the other side. So when you ride through it, then right when you cross into Arizona, there's the turnout to go to the actual visitor center for the camp out place. It's a pretty good views there too. Yeah. But I think the best view of Monument Valley is when you're sitting there on the road. Yeah. The road is what makes that thing cool to me. But then we rode from Mexican Hat, which is 40 miles to that campsite. And then it's another 60 miles, I think, is what it was from that campsite to that next town in Arizona. It was like a.
Was that did it have a crossroad right there with a gas station on the corner? It was a pretty big town.
It was Ace Hardware there, so I found a nut there.
Yeah, that I stopped there as well and washed my bike off. Yeah, but that was right south. But
another thing, like you went on this trip, so after you left there, you kept going. You're headed west still. And I know which roads you're taking, but you went so that one road you hit where you can go south to Grand Canyon or north back up into Utah, I guess, right there. Like, cause what was this place? It was
So I went through Mexican Hat, took a left. I got off the road. I didn't go to Moab on that way up. I took a left in Mexican Hat and stayed at a camp there. There's a river there's a river that cuts through there. It may even be the Colorado River, but it cuts super deep into the canyon, and it's got literally like 4 views of. It looks like a snake, pretty much. And I stayed at that camp right by Mexican Hat, and then next morning I went up north, up to Arches National, I think is what it's called, something like that.
Arches in Moab, isn't it?
No, so it's not called Arches. It's right north.
Something Bridges.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Bridges National or something like that.
Yeah, because Arches is up in in Moab.
Natural Bridges is something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of stayed north of Utah there, huh? Right. South Utah.
Right. And I stayed in southern Escalante area. So I went to the Bridges. So there's a road that's it's called the Valley of Gods. You may have heard of it. Yeah. So there's a dirt road that's super gnarly that transitions up the rock face. Basically, it's a switchback. It's dirt, and there's no guardrail, and it's less than a single lane road. That was white knuckled. Bikes all over the place. But I made it to the top there, and then got to the Bridges National Park, and then I believe from there I drove further north, and I want to say I got all the way to Escalante, the area that's kind of southern central, right north of Lake Powell, and rode down a dirt road and camped there somewhere. Yeah,
because you had went to that one part where the canyons are like, it's all like fucking lines. I think it was it Page, Arizona?
Yeah, so that's Page. So after Escalante, I drove down a dirt road that's called the Hole in the Rock Road. 60 miles of all dirt back towards, and it kind of dead ends at Lake Powell, which is the lake that's in Page, and on the northern part of Lake Powell is where I dead ended. So it's a dead end road, and there's pretty cool canyons and stuff down through there, but it's really desolate. Stayed there, and then I turned around the next morning and went to Bryce, which is beautiful. Zion.
Yeah.
So I was cutting through all that.
Was it hard to was it kind of overwhelmed with people?
Yeah.
You
it was
know?
pretty packed, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing from just people talking. It's like, a lot of these places I only know about because of Instagram, but also I'm that guy on Instagram there trying to get that angle,
Right.
So it's just kind of like you said it earlier, it just kind of ruined it, but
Instagram kind of made spots that were unknown. There's even spots even on Hole in the Rock Road that are super popular now that actually people are they won't even tag the location anymore because it's so remote and it's just starting to get filled with trash and people and just ignorant ass people. But Bryce is still pretty remote, I would say, compared to Zion. So there's more people in Zion than there is in Bryce. They're both equally as beautiful. Bryce, I think, is known for its red canyons, super bright neon red almost to the eye. Yeah. And then from there, through Zion, I went to a small town on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. Forgot the name.
Have you been to the South Rim at all?
No, so I didn't go to the north rim. It was super hot that day, and I was on the bike for a long time, and I was wanting to make Page. So from Bryce, or all the way from Escalante, actually. So I didn't stop I stopped and had lunch at that town north on the north rim, and then made my way to Page.
Yeah, because it seems like on the north rim there's this road you can take. It's like long.
It's a dead end road.
Yeah, it's a dead end road. But supposedly it has some of the best views.
Yep.
Yeah.
Once I realized it was a dead end road, I was like, I'm just gonna skip it.
That's the thing that sucks, man. Like I do the same thing when I'm on trips, man. You see these roads, you want to go down them, but you look, okay, it's 50 miles or it's 30 miles, so that's 60 miles to get back to this spot, and then you're like, well, shit, maybe by the time we get there, it's going to be dark, and then I'm not going to get the pictures I want, and I got to ride back in this shit. And there's just, I don't know. But I always wish that I could plan it better to where I do get to.
And I had just came off that, again, Hole in the Rock Road. I just came off that 60 miles one way, all dirt, and it had massive ditches where there was cars stuck and stuff. And I'm on, there's people trying to drive like
How was it on the
Volkswagens
bike, though? Like, with the off-road?
There was a lot of washboard, but, again, a lot of sand.
How fast were you able to kind of roll on it?
Well, faster you drive, the smoother it is. So I was, 30, 40 miles an hour.
Damn, so it's a couple hours.
Yeah. Yeah, of all, again, just tight gripping and hot.
So is it easier to ride that bike like that on the dirt roads, like standing up more? Or is it just...
It is. In some places, yeah.
Some places, yeah.
It depends, again, on how fast you're going. But, yeah, standing up, it's... and I've got bar risers on my bike, so it's... I can stand up on it quite comfortably.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So after that, you just drive, so where'd you stay at? In Page, is that where you said?
I stayed in Page. I camped at Page. So every once in a while, I'd find these nice campsites that had showers and laundry. And those are a godsend when you're on the road for 2 months needing to wash your underwear, So
what I would do sometimes, I haven't been on a trip like you, but on my 5-day trip, and I'm a princess, so I'm like, I just go to Walmart and buy a new pack of underwear and throw the other ones away.
Yeah, I guess they could do that, but I would just... I washed my clothes there, I remember, and then I think I only stayed there one night. It was really hot again, and it was just absolutely miserable, the heat. So went out and swam in Lake Capel down by the dam there. That's basically, that dam leads to, it's on the northern part of the Grand Canyon, and then on the Colorado River, I think. And then so I went out to... What is the name of that Horseshoe Bend or whatever it is there? That
place looked cool. I saw the picture you took of that.
That place is blown up from Instagram.
Yeah, so you were saying it's like you're right on the edge, and someone just died there recently.
Yeah. So somebody died there. I think when I looked, somebody had died there in May, and I was there in June, or maybe even it was the beginning of July when I got there. But somebody had just died from falling off this sheer cliff that's 1,000 feet down.
Damn.
And I walk up, and it's super windy, and it's hot again, and there's just tons of people from Asian people, thousands of them, and there's no fence, and it's just a sheer
That's what it was
drop-off.
like at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And there's little kids running around and shit. There's kids screaming, running around playing, and people are just taking pictures.
Damn.
Some people hanging off, sitting on the ledge taking pictures, but other than that, that place is beautiful, but it's just overcrowded, right?
Yeah, it's almost like, how do you get that? that picture of like, oh look, I'm out in the wilderness, but behind you it's a fucking Walmart. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You have to get there really late. I mean, even then you can't get a good picture. Or
I know a lot of photographers that get there early. Like I met a photographer. I did a podcast with him earlier this year. I met him on that trip that I just mentioned at Monument Valley. And he was telling us, because he was doing the same thing. He was on his way up to Montreal or something, and then he was going to fly to Alaska for some family shit, so it was a road trip. And he was saying that they were doing all that. They were doing Moab, they were doing Monument Valley, and they had to get all these nighttime, or they had to hike into it at night just so that when the sun's coming up, they can catch the angles. He said because come sun up, it's a fucking madhouse.
Yeah.
You know, it's people.
That's Instagram again, man.
Yeah.
It's made it crazy, especially with, tourism from other countries.
I guess it's a double-edged sword. I mean, it's kind of promoted or kind of got people off their ass and starting to look at different things in life, but, Yeah,
and so I kind of just, and that place, you have to walk to it. It's like a 30-minute walk or so. So it's, again, I was already wore out. So that was the same day I'd rode in to Page. So stayed the night there, woke up the next morning, and went and seen the slot canyons that you've been talking about.
Yeah, that shit looks so cool.
Those are amazing, man. There's a south, and that's on actually Navajo Nation land as well. So Navajo Nation land butts right up to Page. And so there's the South Canyon and the North, or the South Canyons and the North Canyons. The North Canyons are more popular for photographers, so they book out faster because they're wider at the base and they're skinnier at the top. And you get these crazy light, shows in there, sunlight shows in the mornings and at night, in the evenings. So I didn't plan that correctly. I basically, as my trip was going, I booked a reservation, I think, while I was on the road. And I could only get the Southern Canyon, which turned out to be a dream as well, though. I mean, like I said, it was amazing.
Worth it, yeah.
Yeah, and you have an Indian guide that guides you through there. You don't walk through there by yourself, and you're in groups of like 10. So they go and
so it's not
wait.
Overcrowded and everything in there. That's
exactly.
Cool.
So they wait.
My cousin did the thing where they. I'm fucked this up, but I guess down in the bottom of the Grand Canyon, there's like some of the nicest, coolest fucking shit ever.
I'm sure there is, yeah.
And you have to book out like a year in advance to camp down there, but you hike down there, and it's like Havasu Falls or something down there, and you hike through the water too to get to this like area to camp and do this.
I heard about that. Yeah, it's a long hike. But yeah, you have to book that out like a year in advance.
That's crazy. I want to do shit like that. I think. Yeah. I don't know. I think I do.
The camp or the hiking.
No, I love camping.
The camping's fun, but the hiking, I'm not in shape to do the hiking. But the slot canyons though were probably top 3.
So have you not really seen a lot of this shit before?
Haven't, man. No. That's the problem with me. I'm a classic American. I love to travel. I have the money to travel, but I never travel in the U.S. I go to Mexico. I go, a lot of Americans go to Europe or whatever. And this is what I found, is that a lot of Americans, they don't know their own country. We have a huge fucking country. And a lot of them, they just really don't know their own country. So that was another reason why I spent so much time in the lower 48 on the way up to Alaska.
Yeah. I'm the same. I've been taking that same approach because there is a lot here and it's accessible. Yeah. Like I do want to go to Europe. I do want to go to South America, but it's like I can't right now. But this shit is right down the street. Right. Yeah.
It's our backyard. So.
And there's I don't know. I'm not as much of an advocate for flying to things like I've always just thought like it'd be way cooler to go to Egypt, and just like I was talking about, you're on your bike, you're riding through Africa, and you come around this mountain and there's some fucking pyramids there. Not like flying to Cairo, get in a taxi or tourist van,
or
and
rent
you
a
see
car.
Just you get to see it the same way everybody
jump out of
does.
the car, take some pictures, and then go have dinner, and you're like, okay, this is it.
Got to get, we proved it, we went. Like that's not the same experience in my opinion.
It's not, right.
It's still amazing, but it's just not. I feel like the way you experience something can have a way more it can give you a lasting impression about the trip, how you felt about it, like how that kind of moved you and changed you. I don't know why Monument Valley stuck out so much in my mind when I was there, but it was just like it's just for me in my life, it was just like, fuck, like I don't know what this means, but I feel like I just like get leveled up somehow. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah. And I mean, Monument Valley was pretty cool. I found Mexican Hat area cooler just because of the terrain.
Well, one of my favorite movies of all time is Forrest Gump. So
yeah,
it was kind of like,
and exactly, that's the first thing I thought. I was like, I got to stop and take this picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's just crazy. So after you left there, you went down to you checked out Grand Canyon for sure.
Did slot canyons, and I went down the Grand Canyon. I was highly. I had already been to a lot of canyons by that point, but Grand Canyon's huge. Don't get me wrong; it's wide and deep, and it's just immense. But I was expecting more. I guess I don't know really what I was expecting, and maybe it was just due to the hordes of people that were around me.
It's
thousands,
it's a fucking massive.
And then they were doing construction, and it was just like dead stop traffic, having to wait for people to, you know, where they close one lane and then you get the pilot car and type thing. So I had that during my trip to Grand Canyon, which kind of, sitting on a bike in heat like that, it's just not fun.
Yeah, it sometimes it's a little cooler in there. Like when you get to I guess the way you came in, did you hit it and then take the road that goes straight down to 40?
Yeah, so I came out of Page South and then cut straight over. I took a right. I'm bad with road numbers.
Yeah, right there. There's a McAllister's deli right there.
Yep.
We ate at that place once.
Yeah. I stopped there and got fuel, and then took that.
I was like tripping. I was like, fucking McAllister's here. Like,
I noticed that as well. They're building more gas stations. And more stuff there. I mean, again,
it's a tourist spot.
Yeah, it's a tourist spot. So I stopped at a few places and checked it out, and just wasn't doing anything for me. So from there I went south. I dead end. I don't know that road that is, and then went dead end, and then I jumped. At that moment, I went directly south from the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, so it's like a
a T.
Yeah,
right.
So you hit that, and then you go south, and it drops you on the other side of Flagstaff.
Right.
Back on like Williams or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I like that area too. I don't know why. It's a college town, so it's always fun there.
Yeah. And from there, I actually jumped on the highway. That was my first real long highway run. And I went through, I don't really remember. I went through the southern part of Las Vegas.
Henderson and all that shit.
Yeah.
Or, I know what it's called. But so you went across, like you hit Kingsman.
Yep.
Went up and then crossed over, the Tillman Bridge or whatever that thing's called.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's just cool too to me.
Yeah, it is, man. And I had seen that a few times. I mean, being to Vegas and going to the Hoover Dam and stuff. But again, doing it on a bike is a different story. And then from there, I went.
I've been wanting to drive that stretch from Flagstaff or Williams to Kingsman. That's Route 66 stretch that goes off of 40.
Right.
And I always have the intention of doing it, but for some reason when you get there
on the highway
and like you're like, fuck, we're trying to get to Vegas tonight, you know, and it's like, fuck, man, that's an extra 3 hours or something like that to do that. And
I was trying to get past Vegas. I didn't stop at Vegas. I stopped at right before the Mojave Desert, and I remember I stayed at a hotel that night because I had went. That was my 5th day in a row, I think. Well, actually, I had taken a shower in Page. So I'd went a few days without a shower, basically, and I was like, I want a shower. So I stayed at a hotel right outside
hot right
of
there, too.
Yeah,
so.
right outside of Mojave. I stayed at a hotel, and then next
So you
morning,
went all the way past Barstow and everything,
Yep.
right? Okay, yeah. So
Yep.
you passed through Baker and all that shit.
Exactly.
Did you see the thermometer over there?
No, I didn't.
Dude, there's like the world's largest thermometer in Baker.
Oh, really?
So last year on the same trip, you know, we were going through Baker, and this is when it was 120 degrees. And I don't like riding at night.
Neither do I.
I like to see the shit.
I actually didn't ride at night unless it was by accident this whole trip.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got stuck in that desert going across it, and it was a big heat wave going through California last summer. And man, when I tell you, like at 120 degrees, if you have any skin showing, it literally burns.
Yeah.
And then
exactly
at 120, when it drops down to 110, you get chills.
Yeah. And that's what I said. On the bike, man, you can feel when the temperature changes 1 degree. And I didn't know that previously until this trip.
Yeah.
I really learned that and paid attention to that on this trip, because it's amazing how you would be just scalding hot and it would drop a few degrees and it would still be 110 or 100 degrees even. And you're like, oh, this feels so good.
Yeah.
And you look down, it's like, it's still 100 degrees outside. Mm-hmm. So, but then I went through the Mojave that next day.
So you started heading north at that point though, right?
No. So
did you keep going?
I did, yeah. So I went and I don't remember. I think I went through Vegas, stayed. I want to say I stayed on the border of California and Nevada at that point.
Yeah, there's like a little.
There's a casino right there.
My friend's Road King blew up right there once on the year before on that trip.
There's like there's some sort of weird.
Like roller coaster thing.
Yeah, there's a roller coaster thing there, but south of that, even at the border, there's some kind of weird factory, and I think it's like a solar factory.
Yeah, it's a solar farm. They have this like big ass like jar in the center, and it looks like it radiates more light.
Right.
That shit's crazy when you're riding by it.
And that's what it does. It's like a huge mirror ball or something. It's weird. But actually, from that point, I turned off right there. Now that I remember, I turned off and went through back roads directly through the Mojave Desert.
Oh, that'd probably be pretty cool.
Yeah. So
I've done that stretch to Barstow a million times.
Yeah. So I didn't go. I don't think I did go to Baker. So I went south from there.
You said you went to Joshua Tree though.
Right. So I went to Kelso, which is a ghost town in the middle of the Mojave. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't much there. It's just like a railroad depot. Yeah, it's a railroad depot. There's people that live there still, though. But back in the day, I guess it used to be really, really popular. And so from there, though, I went through Mojave, and then I hit Joshua Tree as well, same day.
So Joshua Tree, does it extend on the northern side of that mountain range? Or is it only on the southern? I don't know much about Joshua Tree, but
yeah. So it's down by, I want to say it's 29 Palms.
Yeah,
dude, it was so fucking hot. I went a long ways in one day. It was so fucking hot that I was
So you pretty much went back over that mountain range, to this to the I-10 area,
right?
Damn.
Through Joshua Tree, and then through 29 Palms, through Joshua Tree, and then from there I went. So I literally rode practically from Vegas to San Diego in one day. So I rode through, again, the Mojave, then through Joshua Tree, which was amazing. I got pulled over in Joshua Tree in the park, and the guy was like, "Hey, buddy, you can't be riding dirt roads on a national park or in a national park." I'm like, "I haven't jumped on the dirt at all right now." He's like, "Well, we just had somebody say there was a red dirt bike riding in the dirt." I'm like, "No, really, this is a venture bike. It's not really a dirt bike. I mean, it is a dirt bike, but it's not a dirt bike." He was like, "Yeah, they said that they had just dropped it off of a trailer." I'm like, "Nah, bro, I rode here from Texas." And that wasn't me. But he was just joking around. He let me go. But and then from there, I drove through down to the Salton Sea, which was an experience. If you've ever been to the Salton Sea, it's really cool.
Isn't Glamis not too far from that?
Yeah,
Glamis is that big ass sand dunes that you see
Well, there were sand dunes everywhere.
There were?
Probably,
Okay, yeah.
So I rode through. I guess is it Coachella, the town Coachella, where all that concert is, and then I went down through Salton Sea. Super windy. The most wind I experienced on this whole trip was in Salton Sea. So much so that the 18-wheelers and shit were pulled off the road.
Just to let it,
and the bike was leaned. My bike was leaned over, and I was cruising probably 30 miles an hour on the highway.
So you just was riding along the shoreline of that thing, or what?
Right.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So a really cool thing after that is I cut through.
Slab City's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't go to Slab City. Again, I'd been on the bike, and I found myself doing this a lot, and I would get to the point where I was like, okay, I want to get from this point to this point today, and I would just push and push, and I would skip things that I normally would want to see, right? So I went through Salton Sea, and I was going to make my way over to San Diego, which was a little south. And the reason for that is because I wanted to get new tires on my bike at that point. I'd started with used tires or not new tires, not used tires, but the tread on my bike had been about 50% when I left, and they were already pretty worn. So I was going to get new tires in San Diego. So I cut off I want to say it was right in Salton Sea, Red Earth Casino. I'm looking at a map. And so I cut directly west from there. And one of the reasons I did this is because I heard there was a really cool road to ride. And little did I know there was an Indian reservation as well that is in Southern California, close to San Diego. No one would ever know that. And I took that road up, and again, just Martian landscape, very desolate. There's nothing out there. And then made my way over to San Diego. Stayed the night there again in a hotel, and then from there, I made my way north. And I believe that was the July 3rd, and I stayed July 4th in L.A.
So you're basically 14 days in, 15 days.
And July 4th, I was in L.A. With some buddies, partied that night, and then the next day, my ABS cable on my rear bike it's still flashing right now, started flashing. I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I pulled up to a BMW dealership, and they looked at it and like, yeah, this cable's bad, you're going to need to replace it, but we don't have one. We can order it, but it's going to be a week. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to waste that time. So from that point, I just cruised north, north through Central California, to Bakersfield.
Boringest thing ever.
Yeah, dude, it's like, man, you talk about just like nothing. Bakersfield is really poor too, and yeah, it's. I expected more from Central California.
Yeah, it's like a lot of my business comes from like the Central Valley area, but it's like it's not really that it's poor. It's just like
It's like I guess farmland.
Yeah, it's super farmland. It's just not the same. When you think of California, it's not what you think about.
Right.
You know, and so it throws a lot of people off. Like even my daughter, when we drove up there a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, all right, this part right here sucks. You know?
Yeah, you come out of the mountains, out of San Fernando Valley, and it's like there's just
my
nothing.
wife is from right there in Santa Clarita, so you pass like Magic Mountain and all that shit right there. That's where she's from.
That's a very beautiful area.
I love it up there.
As soon as you drop off that mountain, though, you're like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, where am I at?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
you're north of the wall.
Yeah, north of the wall.
Wildlings up there.
And I mainly took that way because I wanted to make it to Yosemite. Yeah. That was my goal. So
we stayed in a little town just east of Fresno called Three Rivers, and we camped there. And our goal was to go up into the mountains there and ride some of. My thing is, I don't like we were talking about earlier. I don't like the ones where you go in and then you have to turn around and come out. I want to be able to cruise through it and still make progress. And we stayed there. It was right on the river. Like you could hear the rapids all fucking night. It was so dope, right? Yeah. Get on the bikes. I was having lots of bike problems. We get on the bikes. We start riding into it, and it's a super like it's a river town, man. It's like right on the river, and it's fucking you're crossing over it and back over, and there's rapids going down it. And then you get to the kiosk to get into the state park, and it's a huge ass line. And we got our cards for the little state pass. So.
Are you talking about Yosemite?
Yeah, to get in, but we're on the southern part, like Sierra.
That's where I came in.
Oh, it is? Yep. Okay. So we're down there, and like there's this huge line. It's on a fucking hill. Like
what time?
Probably 9, 10 in the morning.
Oh yeah, so you got there too late.
Yeah.
I got there, and there was not even a guard. I got there, and it was like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and there was not even a guard, not even a car.
I really like riding through the foothills before you get up into there. Like
the sun was rising when I was riding before you get to the park.
Yeah,
the sun was rising. That was a beautiful, beautiful sunrise.
That's like I think that's the only thing that I really do enjoy about the Central Valley as far as riding is it. You don't really have these amazing views, but man, you're just carving around these foothills. Yeah. It's awesome, man. It really is a nice ride. But yeah, I couldn't. I walked up there and I tried to get her to let us. I was like, hey. We're on bikes. We got our card. Can get back in line? And I'm like, dude, come on. I don't want to sit in a line on a hill on a bike to show you a card. Just fucking. Yeah. She was a bitch, so we just turned around.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, fuck this. I was already having bike problems all morning, so I was kind of over it.
Yeah. So basically, I had been told, or maybe I had read that. There's the campsites in Yosemite in the summer are absolutely they're again you got to book in advance.
Yeah, that's why we stayed in Three Rivers because there's a campsite right on the river.
Right.
And we couldn't get in there.
Right.
Plus, I'm scared. I don't know how I can deal with bears, man. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that.
Dude, yeah, bears will not usually mess with you unless you're just doing something stupid. But.
Well, you just see those videos when they wander into campsites and shit. I'm like,
and they do though. And Yosemite was my first dose of that, and I'll tell you a story here in a minute. But so I rode in early morning in Yosemite, and there's a campsite there. It's the climbers camp is what they call it, and it's cheap, $6 a night.
Damn.
But there's people camping in line to camp there. So it's the cheapest campsite, and it's one of the only ones that doesn't require reservations. So first come, first serve. And so there's a line there of people camping to camp. And so I get there and there's like 70 people in line. I'm like, oh fuck, dude, I'm fucked. I'm gonna have to stay here today and then ride out. Well, and so I'm sitting in the back, kind of, gauging everything. And then this lady, park ranger, steps out with this big stack of papers, and they have numbers on them. And she starts handing one to everybody in line. And there's 70 camp spots available. And I don't know how many there are total, maybe 100 or so. 70 spots available. Maybe there's more than that. But I'm number 69. So she hands me 69, same day that I get back, or same length of my trip. She hands me number 69, and there's a chick behind me that gets number 70. And so I had a campsite.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit. I guess I just got lucky. Yeah. And I had been out of line before that. And as soon as I seen those numbers, I was like, I guess I might as well just squeeze back in line here. And I squeezed in line, and I was second to last. But... So yeah, then I told her, you have to tell her once you get up to the kiosk how many days you want to stay, and I think I stayed there 4 days, or 4 nights.
That's cool.
Yeah,
well, it gives you a chance to explore the area and stuff,
Yeah, and dude, man, Yosemite's again Instagram famous, so
yeah,
and that was my first kind of, I don't know, experience with bears. Like I was saying, there was the first thing that happened is, as soon as everybody got done and, their campsites assigned to them, rangers started walking through saying, hey, lock all your shit up. There's bears everywhere. We've had a lot of bears this year, and raccoons. And at that campsite, you don't get your own campsite. You have to share it with people, which I like because I'm by myself and I get to meet people.
Being able to talk to people, especially being by yourself on a trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they put me in this campsite that had this guy that practically lived in Yosemite. He would just like jump around campsites. He would go up in the hills north of the park and camp there, and then he'd come back.
So they have like hike up campsites as well?
Oh yeah.
For backpacking and shit?
Yeah. So there's long valley trips, and I mean, dude, you can hike there for days. But so I got lucky there because he kind of told me, hey, go see this, don't go see this, don't waste your time doing that. And so there was there was him, another guy, and then a couple. So there's 4 of us, 4 tents in each spot. And it was, met those guys, pretty cool talking to them. But so I hiked a few days. There's so much stuff in Yosemite, especially in the valley, man. There's pictures everywhere. You stop and take a picture. And the first day I was hiking, and you may have seen this, it's the 5th, which I didn't know, the 5th largest waterfall. Yeah. In North America, which I was like, or maybe, I don't know, I forgot.
It's 5th largest in the world, first largest in North America.
Yeah, first largest in North America, yeah. So it's like insane.
It's huge, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, I just seen, Instagram, Google Maps it.
Yeah, it sounds like you do a lot of research, but...
I have a weird fetish with maps, man.
Oh, so do I.
Like, sometimes when social media is not engaging and there's nothing going on, I will literally just look at maps.
Yeah.
I look at other countries.
Yeah.
Like, since Google Maps, it's like you can zoom in.
Google Earth, drop down. Yeah, Google Earth has a pretty cool feature, too. A lot of people don't know about that. You can scale back years. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
It depends on the area, but some of them go back to like the 80s. And it's like, were they really taking pictures in the 80s? But I think Ellis County, you can go back to 90, 95, something like that.
That's wild.
Yeah. And that's on Google Earth, though. I don't think it's on the actual interface of the website. I stayed a few days in Yosemite, seen a lot of bear. That was the first time I'd ever seen a wild bear was in Yosemite. And that was just walking down the road. And I didn't want to really ride my bike. I was kind of wore out. So I was like, and you can kind of ride buses in the valley. And I was just walking down the road, and there was a black bear. It wasn't big, but just out in the valley, one of the valleys there, just eating or whatever, getting ready for winter.
Yeah.
So,
but you like nothing like sketchy. It was just kind of like they're there, like the presence was felt.
They say, man, that, and again, I'm not a bear pro or anything, but they say as long as you don't mess with a mama bear and its baby or get in between food, then you're going to be fine. It's not going to mess with you. And so one night we were sitting around the campsite and we heard this rustling. And so I shine my light over there, and there's a fucking raccoon that's climbing inside of a tent. And this tent was zipped shut.
So it cut it open?
No, it just opened the zipper.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it opened the zipper and climbed in, and it was climbing out with a backpack. It had a backpack in its hand or in its mouth, don't remember. And it was the couple that was then. They were from California.
Yeah.
The chick jumps up, runs over, and snacks this backpack from this raccoon, and it's like pulling back on the backpack. I remember it had it in its mouth. It was so epic, and I was like, "What the fuck was that?" It's like
Raccoons don't give a fuck up there.
Yeah, they just walked up, and then so the next day I was asking the ranger, I was like, "Hey, do raccoons open tents?" She's like, "Oh, they open them all the time. We have people's whole tent get cleared out, and they never find anything."
Little fucking thieves.
Yeah. And she said the raccoons do more damage around here than the bears do. So it's like,
That's
wow.
crazy. So you stayed there for 4 days. You got to see all the cool Instagram spots and everything.
Yeah, do a Half Dome and glacier view and all that.
Yeah.
And then, I highly recommend it, man. Yosemite was overall is the ease of getting there and like how everything's put together. It's probably my favorite national park.
Yeah, no, I'd be more interested in camping there now that knowing that it's just I don't know a lot of people that's been in those campsites, and I don't want to be like, I don't want to be in a bad situation where I don't know what to do, especially with like any wildlife. Like I'm from the fucking city, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. I mean, dude, they have food lockers.
Yeah.
Just keep all your shit, all your your deodorant and shampoos and food in those lockers, and the chances of a bear coming up into camp are pretty slim, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I never had any problems.
So initially out of this whole trip, you still, with your wife, she was going to fly up there. So you still had that goal of you had to be there by that time.
Well, we bought the ticket while I was on the road.
Okay.
So it was one of those things where we did have a date,
Yeah.
but I wasn't going to set that date before I left because I didn't know, honestly, if I was going to make it to Alaska.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, there was numerous times in this trip where I was just wore out.
So what was
I
it
missed
like?
my wife, and I was like, I'm just going to turn around.
Yeah, like that brings up a good point. Like, what was the psyche like during this trip?
It was up and down, and even I caught myself doing it numerous times. I was like, okay, I'm having a bad day. I'm just going to keep driving, keep riding. I'll make it, wherever I need to get to. And tomorrow I'll be better. I feel like shit or whatever, a little sick or whatever, but. And then I'll talk to my wife, and she's like, "No, you can't stop. You got to keep going."
Yeah.
So, and I almost turned around. I can't tell you, dude, 2 or 3 times at least. I know I was really close to turning around right at the Canadian border because I started looking at the map and I was like, I'm only fucking halfway.
Yeah.
And I'm already a month and some change into this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm only halfway there. So.
So after you left Yosemite, was it a straight shot?
Yeah. So I have an uncle that lives in Sacramento. I visited him for a day, stayed there. And then I made my way over to San Francisco. Stayed 2 days in San Francisco.
What area did you stay in San Francisco?
Good question, man. I stayed at a hostel downtown.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how cheap Ubers are there, dude. You get like $1, you can go all across town.
Yeah. And I mean, San Francisco is just that. It's it's the tech hub of the world. So I had one of my bags stolen off my bike in San Francisco, which kind of ruined San Francisco for me. So I parked my bike out front of the hostel, pulled my tank bag off because that's what has my passport and all my cash. Pull that off, walk inside the hostel, and I leave my 2 panniers. I had topper bags, watertight bags on top of my panniers that had my camping gear in it and my hiking boots. And sleeping bag, sleeping pad, all that shit.
Yeah.
So I walk inside, I get my room, walk upstairs, throw my tank bag down, pull my helmet and all that stuff down, and I walk outside, and one of my bags is gone, just like that fast.
Homeless people out there.
And they
man.
only stole one bag. The other one, they didn't decide they didn't want to steal. And so one bag had one shoe in it, so I lost one of my hiking boots, which were like $200 Gore-Tex hiking boots, and then I lost my tent poles, but my tent was in the other bag. So I had my tent, but no tent poles. And
some like REI tents, I think you can.
No, so I went to REI and they wouldn't help me.
Oh, fucking cunts.
Yeah, basically said I had to buy a new tent. They could direct me to where I could get new poles, but so my tent poles were gone. I had a tent. They took my chair, They took one shoe. I don't know. There's just random stuff in that bag, right? Because when you pack everything, because you're unpacking and packing your bags every day, right? So you just kind of just stuff it in there. And so I lost that. Went to REI, asked for some more poles. They said we don't sell poles here for that specific tent, so you're going to buy a new tent. So at that point, I had already had too much stuff on me. I had realized, hey, I've got too much shit on me. So at that point, I took the tent that had no poles, or I actually took the new tent, which was the same one I had, and packed it up with some clothes and shipped it back to Texas.
Yeah, I've done that in San Francisco too. Yeah. Just makes the load lighter.
Right.
You know, and if you end up buying any souvenirs on the way, you can always kind of like have space for it.
Yeah, and exactly what I did. Yeah, so. Brought some stuff back to the wife. So, and then kind of did the touristy thing around San Francisco. It was really foggy, really cold, so I didn't get any good shots of the bridge.
Yeah.
You know, that fog rolls in, dude. It's like a wall.
Dude, you know, like I'd always fly up there a lot a couple years back when I was doing a lot of work up there. And it's so crazy because that whole little valley where the bay is, you know, you got the mountains behind, you know, Oakland and all that shit. It's just like when you're flying into it, you see the mountains, you see the houses on them.
Yeah.
But there's this like layer of fog that completely covers the whole city. And you see like the tips of the bridges coming out of it and shit. A couple buildings
and
over.
It's gnarly, I'm sure, to see from the top, but it just kind of ruined everything for me because I got there at the wrong day.
Oh, it's sunny on top.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd been to San Francisco when I was a kid, but, you know, I wanted to really enjoy the city, and it's beautiful.
You know what's cool about San Francisco is when you know someone that lives there and they know, like, especially like my good friend that lives up there, his brother lives in town, like right there on the top where Lombardi Street is. Like he lives at the top, and we went to visit him, and he took us down to some cool little pubs, like the places where the locals go, and it was like, this is fucking cool. This is San Francisco.
Yeah. There's nothing better than knowing somebody that lives in the city, though, right? So,
and it's like all those little corner stores, man. Like that shit just seems cool. It's like there's no Walmarts around. You like, you know, you being here and you know you working out there by the shop. You know, there's a Walmart every 3 miles.
Texas, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like you're here in this place, you're like, fuck, man, like there's something nostalgic about this shit. About this.
There is. And there's so much foreign there's so much foreign food.
So many Asians there.
Yeah, there's a lot of Asians in California, period. But, yeah, so and the you know, after the few days in San Francisco, I cruised. I decided at that point I wanted to cruise up because I had missed Big Sur and all that in the South.
Oh, you did?
I did, yeah, because again I went into Yosemite. So I decided I want to cruise the coast, the Northern California coast. So I went through.
Dude, it's so nice.
Yeah, what's that brewery? That's real popular. There's a town right north of San Francisco.
There's Petaluma.
Lagunitas.
Oh.
Yeah.
The only part I've ridden.
Yeah.
The only part of the northern coast I've ridden is my friend took me up through Petaluma over to Bodega Bay, which I guess is where they filmed that movie The Birds or some shit back in the day. And then we rode that back to San Francisco, and that was fucking awesome.
Really?
It's like super high cliffs, which I'm sure it's like that all the way up the coast, you know, going north. It seems like the further north you go, the further high you get up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's as far as north as I've been. You know, my goal next year is to go like at least some of what you did, but still in the United States. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, I don't know if they brew that beer there, the Lagunitas, but I went through a little community there. It's right outside of a national forest. Really beautiful.
What was it, Eureka up there?
Eureka's way north.
Oh,
so Lagunitas is right close to San Francisco. It's an hour outside of San Francisco,
okay.
Maybe less. And you know, going north from there was just absolutely stunning. It was really cold, and I hate cold weather. But for me, it was cold. It was, you know, 60 degrees, 59, 60 degrees. And I'm riding to Alaska, but and it was raining, dreary, whatever, and dark. And so I just cruised all the way up the coast until Eureka, stayed in Eureka.
Were you on the one the whole way? Or
I was, yep.
Cool. That's really cool.
Beautiful, man, yeah. A lot of cool little communities.
Yeah,
You just don't feel like you're in the U.S. You feel like you're like riding on like the western coast of Norway or something, right?
Yeah, it's like because I saw some of that on the small parts. Because when you're like going, Monterey down, the only towns you go through are Big Sur, and then you hit like fucking Morro Bay and shit down in the south. There's really nothing else in between. But on the north side, you go through these little surf towns, is what they feel like.
Yeah.
Or really rich people towns.
Yeah, really rich. Like it literally feels like you're in the Northeast. Like you're in.
Like you would be in like.
Feels so weird.
Like a Twilight movie or some shit. Like just some of these.
It doesn't feel like you're in the U.S. It's easy to put, but and especially coming into Eureka as well. Eureka's like this weird artsy town, and and it was really cold. I didn't get there. I remember I got there and it was dark, so I'd kind of I rode from San Francisco all the way to Eureka.
That's a good ride.
Yeah. Especially up the coast there.
Yeah, that's fucking a long ride, actually.
Yeah. And then from there, I kind of rode into inland through the redwoods.
So I keep getting confused, man.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, there's lots of spots where they have those big ass redwoods.
There is, yeah.
Okay, because I see them in fucking the Sierra Nevada mountains over there, or like the Yosemite area. There's some between like what is it, Santa Cruz and like San Jose,
right?
And
there's some going on the John Muir Trail, which are right by San Francisco. Mm-hmm. The big boys, what is the name of that?
The Redwoods National Park.
Well, the Redwoods, yeah, but there's the big boys, the sequoias.
Yeah,
those are the big ones. Those are the ones. Those are south of Yosemite. I did not go through that.
That's where we were at.
Yeah,
we were trying to go see those, and that's where we kind of turned around at or whatever.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to go to Redwoods because I'd been there as a kid as well, and I remember going there with my dad, and it was just beautiful. So went into the Redwoods, which are kind of right on the border of Oregon, and that's where you really start getting into pine country, right? And that's where I seen my first really big animal, which was an elk, like you had previously mentioned. Just walked. I'm cruising on a back road, curvy road in the middle of nowhere, and this thing just walks out right in front of me, and I damn near laid the bite down, probably going 40 or 50 miles an hour. And then it hopped up real quick, and took off. But it was huge. I mean, the top of the rack of that thing probably was 8 foot.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's
easy.
Wild.
It was huge deer. And so I have a cousin in Seattle. So I was trying to make a beeline, another date I had, to get up there with him because we were going to go for a birthday party with a friend. So basically, I was cruising from Eureka, trying to make my way through Oregon. So I didn't spend much time in Oregon. I think I may have camped there one night and then made my way.
I want to see Oregon more, but I don't know. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of people talk about Oregon. It's like this really artsy thing. It's like it's got this California flavor going on, but it's like super weird.
Yeah,
But just that coast all the way up, man. And then those, what's that big Mount Rainier or something up in
Mount Rainier? Yep, it's right outside.
I want to see that shit, man.
Right, yeah. From my cousin's place, he has a rooftop. You can see Mount Rainier like it's clear as day there in Seattle.
It's got to be wild, man.
Yeah.
I tell all my friends that live in those areas, like, you don't know how cool it is to be able to wake up every day and see something
like active. I don't know if it's active. I'm assuming it's been active recently. Volcano that big.
Yeah.
And there's a few of them. It's not only Mount Rainier coming north out of Oregon. There's other volcanoes that you can see from the highways. And I was going to make a loop around Rainier, but I didn't do it again because I had a different appointment. But Seattle's beautiful. I'd been there a few times, and I spent.
So you weren't. It wasn't part of their like rain season where it rains every fucking day. So
it rains a lot there, but it didn't rain there. It was beautiful while I was there. In fact, it was 85 degrees probably.
Nice.
Kind of hot. And I don't know if you know this, but the majority of the homes and apartments that are up on the Northeast, they have no AC. So brand new apartment, brand spanking new, no AC, no vents, no nothing. They just open the window. So we slept with the windows open and with the fans blazing because it was too hot. And he said over the past few years it's been getting hot, pretty much every summer. So
a little bit hotter.
Just kind of have to deal with it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So at this point is when you were like really thinking about turning around?
Yeah, so I spent a few days with him, got really fucked up a few nights drinking, right? And so at that point I was debating on turning around because I knew I still want to go through Yellowstone. And when I started this trip, I was like, okay, this trip's going to take, I planned out mileage. Like, it's going to take me 10, 12,000 miles. And it's going to take me X amount of days. Well, I was already 2 weeks from that deadline of the 2 months. I guess I was a week, maybe a week past the...
When you should have been there?
Yeah, something like that. And so basically I'd thought I was going to be there sooner or something, and I wasn't making my time. And I was also already over 10,000 miles on the trip, or right at 10,000 miles, and that's what I'd planned on doing the whole fucking trip. So I fucked up my math somewhere.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah. And so I then decided, I think I'm going to turn around. And I talked to my wife. She's like, no, you got to keep going. We've already bought this plane ticket. I want to go to Alaska. And I kept looking at that map, dreading that ride. After you leave Seattle, you go through Vancouver, and then that's when you get into Canada. And then north of Vancouver, you hit, is it Whistler, I think is what it is, where they had the Winter Olympics a few years back. And that's after that, man. There's nothing.
Nothing.
That's when you leave the lower 48, pretty much.
Damn.
And Vancouver's stunning. Vancouver was, if I had one city to visit, it would have been Vancouver. That was my favorite city to revisit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I only spent 1 day there, so it was stunning, though. Beautiful city, very clean, and it's a little too left for my views, but
yeah.
it is.
Well, that's the whole Pacific Northwest, though.
I mean, they have, and I don't know if I told you, they have heroin storage, like needle boxes in the restrooms of restaurants and stuff.
Because people do it so much?
Yeah, it's legal to do it. There's needles. There's people walk around in orange vests with these little, what do they call those little things where you pick up trash off the ground?
Yeah.
Yeah, just walking around picking up needles.
Damn.
Yeah.
So
I've seen them with my own two eyes numerous times in Canada. I've seen them in Vancouver, Calgary, but the thing that got me is when I walked into a Starbucks restroom and there was a needle depository box, like I was in a hospital taking a piss test or something. You're in the restroom and there's a needle depository box.
That's weird.
On the wall. Yeah, really weird.
It's like, hey, you got to go to Starbucks right quick and get loaded.
Yeah. And then you just deposit your needle and go on your way. So
come out a happier person.
Yeah.
Come to Starbucks an asshole and leave happier.
Yeah. You're not going into Starbucks for caffeine.
Yeah. Man, it seems like the wilderness up there is just so massive that it kind of, when you ride west, like for me, like I'm so excited to see that first mountain, right? But by the time I get to Cali, it's like I'm not necessarily over it. I'm still like, oh, this is cool, but it doesn't feel the same as that first mountain.
I totally understand it, man. And that's another reason why I was like, okay, I've already seen all this. I'm just going to turn around. But I thank God I didn't. Because again, as soon as you get north of Vancouver, you go through Whistler. It's a little populated there. It's a tourist town, a lot of hiking, a lot of beautiful mountains and lakes, and obviously in the winter, it's a huge ski town. And then north of there, I rode basically from Vancouver to 100 Mile House is the name of the town. Had fuel there. I camped there. And that was kind of, my first really cold
What
night.
kind of temperature was it?
At night, I think for me, cold again. I think it dropped down like 45 at night, something like that.
That could be a little.
And at 10 it can, yeah. Especially when you're coming from,
the heat. Yeah.
You're coming from Southern California and Mojave and shit.
Yeah.
So, but at that point it had already cooled down as well. And there's nothing worse than riding in that kind of heat, man, with your ass.
Yeah.
And
all the sweat.
All the sweat. Once you get a little bit north and it starts cooling down, the ride gets more comfortable and you're able to sit in the saddle longer.
Yeah.
So yeah, after 100 Mile House, I went up to Prince George, which is the biggest town north of Vancouver in BC, British Columbia, Canada, which British Columbia is known for its wilderness, right? It's like the most wild part of Canada when it comes.
Lots of grizzly bears.
A lot of pine trees. Just it's all forest, right? And that's where all these forest fires are happening, or happened this year.
Yeah.
I heard it actually is the worst. Last year was the worst, and then this year passed. So last year's the second worst. This year's the worst on record for forest fires, like millions and millions of acres. But yeah, so went through Prince George, boring town, got food, and then camped outside of town somewhere. Like once you get outside of Prince George, start heading west. So I was heading north from 100 Mile House into Prince George, and then I started heading west. And at that point, you're kind of going directly towards the water, right? And there's a town called Prince Rupert that's on the coast there. I didn't make it out that far, but I camped somewhere between Prince Rupert and Prince George.
Oh, yeah, I see Prince George here. So
Yeah.
you had to go quite a ways inland to get to that.
Yeah.
Around some big ass mountains is what it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, and the roads, I mean, again, it's wilderness, man, so you have to follow the roads. And actually in Prince George, I met a guy that was riding a Ducati Multistrada, I think is what it was. And he had ridden from Vancouver to Prince George on nothing but dirt road. So he was
What?
wore out, yeah.
Damn.
It'd take him like 4 days or so. Riding log trails, because, you get these big log trucks and stuff.
Yeah.
That come onto the highways, but they're pulling off these back roads.
So you had to. Okay, I see how you can make it. I was like, damn, did you have to go all the way to Calgary?
No,
Did
so
they cut up?
there's a highway, Cassiar Highway, that I forgot what numbered highway that is, but I want to say it's 3.
5?
Is it 5?
That's what I'm seeing.
Because they're on that side of Canada. The roads are labeled just by single digits. I think it's highway. So
Or 97?
yeah, let me.
16. I see Prince George, and then you said you started headed due west.
I due west and rode through a little town called Houston, which
Yeah,
I
I saw
see
that.
there. And so I stopped at Kitwanga. So Kitwanga is the tee off to where 37 is the highway, the Cassiar
Yeah.
Highway. I rode up 37 to Mezzadine Junction, which is just like a tee off. And that takes you out to 37A, which if you look there, will bring you down to a place that's really cool called Stuart Hyder. So Stuart Hyder is the only... Stuart is in Canada, Hyder is in Alaska. It's on the border of the U.S. and Canada. And Hyder is a little bitty town that's mainly known for its bears. It's called Fish Creek. There's a lot of bears there that are fishing for salmon around the middle to the end of the summer.
Yeah.
That was actually the first time I'd ever seen a glacier in my life.
Yeah, I saw you posted that today about the glacier.
Yeah. That glacier I posted today on Instagram was actually in Alaska, but that was the first one I ever walked on. These glaciers were tucked up in the mountains. You couldn't
reach them.
You could, yeah. I mean, you could, but it would take you, a day to get there. But Stuart is in Canada. It's a pretty big town, pretty cool town. And then there's a little town called Hyder on the other side of the border there. That is the only, which I've read, don't know if it's true, but the only land crossing into the U.S. that's uncontrolled. So you just ride right into the U.S. There's no border patrol, no border control. But it's a dead end, right? I mean, I guess there you could walk across mountains and find a road, but so stayed the night in Hyder, watched some bears eating fish, chasing salmon, salmon spawning there in that river.
Yeah.
And that's where I really started seeing a crazy amount of bear.
Like there's a shit ton up there?
Yeah, like there's this black bear walking down the street, like just crossing the street, and they just look at you like they're just used to you, I guess. And then we rode out to, at that point I was still alone. I rode out to a huge glacier that's, again, if you go into Hyder, there's a road that just continues on and it dead ends into a glacier. And at that point I passed a guy on the way there that was standing next to his bike, KTM, and I could tell he was having problems with it. And I waved at him, gave him a thumbs up, he gave me a thumbs back, so I just kept riding. Right. Made my way up to the glacier. I was cruising around up there, just enjoying it. Huge, amazing. And again, I highly recommend, if you're going to do Alaska, you definitely want to go to Stuart Hyder. And at that point, after seeing enough of the glacier, I made my way back, and he was still there. So I stopped, and I was asking if he was okay, and I come to find out he was from Cuba.
Damn.
Yeah. And his bike had broke down. And so he was with another guy that was from Utah, and the guy had taken off to go see if they could find a truck, which he never found, a tow truck or even a truck to put the bike in. Well, so I just hung out with him the whole time. We drank a few beers, and then his buddy pulled back. and they decided they were going to tow the bike down the side of a mountain from a glacier on a dirt road that switchbacks. And I'm like, yeah, man, I don't know about that, but I'll ride in front of you guys and make sure there's nobody coming around a blind curve, right?
Yeah.
Well, halfway down the road, I guess the guy pops the clutch or something after we had tried numerous times to push the bike down the hill and pop the clutch and get it started, but it wouldn't start. Well, it started somehow. Damn KTMs, right? And then, so after that, I went and had some beers with them.
That's cool.
And,
Cuba, man, that's got to be a story.
I think he actually lives in Florida at the moment or something, but you could tell he was Cuban. Yeah, long ride. And he had just bought that bike. He had, just took it on a ride for no reason. So, and from there, jump back on 37. And again, this is one of those dead end things where going to Hyder, there's no way out.
Yeah.
You ride into Stewart, Hyder, you have to turn around and ride the road back to Mezzanine Junction. And from there, I rode north on 37 all the way up to Dease Lake, which, again, you can look at a map on this road or on this trip, and you're like, oh, I can make that in no time. But you don't understand how big Canada is, and BC in general. It's just fucking massive.
Okay, so the Yukon are you in the Yukon territory?
No, you're still in BC at that moment, in Dease Lake, and then Cassiar. And then once you get up to Watson Lake, I think actually 37 ties into a little T there, and Watson Lake's to the right. Well, I ended up taking a left, obviously, because I'm going to Alaska. So I rode, I think I stayed at Dease Lake, and then I rode from Dease Lake to the capital of the Yukon, which is Whitehorse, which was another long ride. Because again, at that point, I've been dragging ass, right? I've been enjoying myself, and I have a date to get to Anchorage because my wife's flying there, and I don't want to leave her. I don't want to just leave her in Anchorage by herself. Yeah. So I get to Whitehorse, which is a weird town. They call it the cleanest air town, big town in the world. It's pretty high elevation, but it's in the middle of the Yukon.
Was it any God damn.
People laughing.
They're partying outside.
That's out in the hallway.
Oh, it's in the hallway? Hope nobody's getting shot out there. What's is there any major differences between the towns up there, or is it kind of desolate?
Yeah, it's just more desolate. There's a lot of indigenous people, first off. That's one thing I was never expecting, but the more north you get, the more indigenous it gets, where the people are Indian, Native American, really nice people. Yeah. But, they're a different person, than what I'm used to. And there's a lot of poverty up there as well. That or this weird, I don't know the best word for it, maybe gypsies that just travel around. Yeah. People that are homeless and they don't need to be. And
some of that was into the wild shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of young people that are homeless up there, and it's like, bro, you're homeless in the wrong town. Why don't you go to San Francisco or San Diego where it's warm?
Yeah. I always tell people if I'm going to be homeless, I'm going to go to California and be homeless.
Yeah, I'm going to go to San Diego is where I'm going to go. So it's like...
you're going
to get everything free there, exactly. And it's going to be warm, right? And there is a lot of homelessness in California, but not to go into that. But Whitehorse was beautiful, and again, it was just a stopover. Yeah. Again, I'm trying to get to Anchorage. So stay at Whitehorse, stay in a hotel there, freshen up again, wash my clothes. Yeah. Everybody's stopping you, asking you, oh my God, you're from Texas and this and that. License plate really is what they're seeing. And then, and you have to give them the story, and then, So stayed the night in Whitehorse, and that was the first, and at that time I'm beelining north, trying to get up to Alaska. That was the first time I started realizing that it wasn't getting dark. It was 1 o'clock at night, and it was still daylight outside. Damn. Yeah, so I'm sitting in my hotel room, and it's 11:30, and I look out the window, and it's daylight. I'm like, holy shit. It's it's in the middle of the night pretty much, midnight, and it's daylight. People walking around. I mean, I don't see how people sleep, but... Yeah, so I closed the curtains and woke up the next morning at 6 o'clock, and it's daylight. So...
That's got to be a weird fucking thing.
Yeah, and camping, it's really bad, right? So...
You need some little blinders or something.
Yeah. And at that point, it was starting to get... I don't remember exactly what day it was at that point, but So in the middle of the summer is where it's really bad, where it stays daylight pretty much. The sun sets, and this is in the northern part of Alaska, but northern part of Canada. But at Whitehorse, they're still getting a little bit of that, Then it gets dark for 4 or 5 hours, maybe, and when it gets dark quick.
Where are you able to see like the northern lights and shit like that, like the auroras?
Northern lights you can only see in the northern part, close to they call it the Brooks Pass, which is a mountain range north of. I think you can see them in Fairbanks as well. So I would say Fairbanks is kind of the break point.
Yeah.
And you may, again, I'm from Texas, but this is what I remember from reading. But you may be able to see them even in Anchorage. But you only can really see them in the fall. Like right now, I think they're starting, and then into the winter.
That's cool. That'd be cool to see. I don't know if it's worth that ride in the winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just see that one on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can see them right now, which is kind of the break. I don't know what it's getting. I mean, what the temperature is in that area, but
well, it's like you were talking about Yosemite. It's like every year that I've gone out to California, it's been closed because of snow.
Right.
So it's like and this is like April, May. It's still closed. You know what I mean? So.
And it's a lot of it's elevation and stuff, but Whitehorse is just a cool little town because it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they have a Walmart as well. I think it's the only Walmart I seen 2 Walmarts in Canada, and that was one of them. So I stayed in Whitehorse, and then I headed to the border. Basically, at that point, I was going to go ride from Whitehorse over to the border of Alaska in one day. So made that trip and ran out. That was actually the only time I ran out of gas. Luckily, I carry a 1 liter,
can.
What do they call it? The little red canisters. Slips in my mind right now, but it's basically like a camping canister that you can carry fuel in.
Yeah.
And so I carry one of those on the back of my bike, and that saved my ass because it gives me, another 20 or 30 miles. And that was kind of my fault because I hadn't planned correctly. I didn't gas up.
It's pretty spread out, so you're not really catching as many gas stations. What's the gas prices like?
They're really high. Yeah, the most I paid for gas in Canada was $8 a gallon.
You serious?
Yeah, but so it's kind of tricky because it's converted to Canadian dollars, which the U.S. dollar is stronger right now. I think it's like 75 cents U.S. to $1 Canada. But they also use metric, so they use liter and stuff, so it can get a little tricky, kilometers, and so the liters thing's tricky, like, gas, blah, 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 it's this much, and really it's a little more expensive every time, but gas in Canada is expensive, $4 or $5 a gallon anywhere normally, and if you don't plan correctly, you end up paying $8 a gallon like I did. So that was in the middle of nowhere too. But
yeah. Well, it's got to be harder to get gas up there. You know what I mean?
It is, yeah. And like you said, it's spread out, so you kind of have to plan that. Luckily, again, my bike's got a 6.5 gallon tank on it, but or 6 gallon, 6 point something, that allows me to get a little further. It
just seems like all the I'm seeing where you're going to come into Alaska here, and it's like it seems like there's only one path to take, and everything is just a vein.
There is,
and you still have to come back to this main one.
Exactly. If you're riding to Alaska. There's only one way into Alaska and one way out on on road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like everything's just kind of like branched off of that main road to go explore different parts of it.
Yep. So
is Fairbanks bigger than Anchorage, or
actually? So I'm remembering my route here. Fairbanks is not bigger than Anchorage. No, Anchorage is the biggest city.
Okay.
Anchorage, actually, I don't know if I told you this, there's 400,000, there's like, I don't know the exact number, but there's like a percentage of people that live in Anchorage that is like super high versus the whole country. So it's like 75% of the people in Alaska live in Anchorage, and everybody else lives in a state that's 3 times the size of Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen those maps on they're like just those size perspectives where they put like Alaska over the United States, and it's pretty much like as far as north and south taller than the United States, and almost
half the size.
Yeah,
it's insane how big it is, man. And maps distort it how big it is.
Yeah,
and I swore that every day I was riding after I crossed the border. I'm like taking days to get to Anchorage, and nonstop. But after Whitehorse, I actually went south.
Where was that? Before you met up with your wife, is that where you hit that hotel that you were telling me where everybody lives in the same hotel?
No.
So that was after the...
Okay. My wife was with me on that. And I'll get to that here in a minute. And that's similar to what... So from Whitehorse, I went south back into... So Whitehorse is Canada. If you go south down, I think it's Highway 2. Yeah. Highway 2, you go into Skagway, which is a bay.
I see it, yeah.
So the difference between Skagway and Haines...
Mud Bay, Haines.
No, the difference between Skagway and Stuart Hyder, which I was discussing earlier, is that Stuart Hyder is too thin of a port to get a cruise ship into. So there's nobody there. There's no huge 3,000 room cruise ship sitting there docked. Whereas when you go into Skagway, it feels like you're going... There's bars there's Vegas-style bars in Skagway.
Oh, it's a party town.
Exactly. And there's 3 cruise ships docked there, and they're like, oh, we're in Alaska. It's like, no, you're not in Alaska. You just took a cruise ship, and you've been on the water the whole time.
Yeah.
So...
See, my little brother he got to go on a Alaska cruise when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And...
I'm not a cruise person. I make fun of people who take cruises.
My wife wants to do one. I want to do it with her. It'd be cool to do, but I'm still I like the rawness of traveling, on a bike or even in a car, just seeing it that way. Sometimes I like the plane, if it's something I just need to get there and back, if it's not really about traveling or trip.
And work and etc.
But man, I love road trips. So that's another one. You pretty much have to turn around and go right.
Well, no, you don't actually.
Oh, you don't?
So if you look south of Skagway, there's a place called Haines. It's called, and that's still Alaska. So I took a boat, put my bike on a boat for $50.
Damn,
$80, something like that, from Skagway to Haines.
That's a good trek too. How
it was only an hour on boat.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Guess you don't have to do stoplights.
But I wanted just to do it because I'd never thrown my bike on a boat before. Yeah, and no stoplights. And no traffic, right? And so I get to Haines.
Did you see any whales at all?
Yeah, I did. Me and the wife took a boat trip out of Valdez, which is is the northern part of closer to Anchorage, and we seen whales there.
That's cool.
Humpback.
Is Haines a pretty cool town?
Haines is cool. They've got a microbrewery there, and they have a Radio Shack there as well.
Still got one, huh? Yeah. Still hanging on.
The first Radio Shack I've seen, and I don't know when. It was cool to see that. I just laughed at myself.
Get the selfie with that thing.
Yeah, so that's where I took the video with my GoPro of the bald eagle flying over me. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You had a lot of stories that were fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And then, of course...
You see a lot of crazy shit, man, spending that much time, especially in the wild like that. If you look a little west, though, from Haines, there's like a river that comes into the bay there. And the eagles love to nest around these low volume rivers that don't have a lot of water flowing through them. I guess it's easier for them to see prey or whatever. But yeah, I'm just cruising along the road. I look up and there's a fucking bald eagle just pacing me, flying right beside me.
America right there.
Yeah. And I clicked my GoPro on quick, and then luckily I got video of it.
That's cool.
So yeah, man, that was the first bald eagle I seen, and I wasn't expecting to see any more. But once we got into Valdez, which is again up in Alaska, man, there was bald eagle everywhere. And I was talking to a guy. He was saying that they're making a comeback. They were close to being distinct, I guess, or extinct. And they are making a huge comeback apparently.
Yeah, I've heard. I listened to Joe Rogan's podcast a lot, and they were talking about how, up in Alaska, they're just fucking everywhere.
They are
almost like pigeons.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I wouldn't say that, but yeah, they're everywhere. I mean, I seen
eating out of trash cans and shit.
Yeah, I seen 3 within a mile range, within a 30-minute span of time. Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
I think one was a male and female, but.
Well, hell, so when you took that boat ride and you're headed back up to Alaska, how long is that trip from there back into Canada?
Yeah, it took me a full day. So from Haines to Haines Junction, I pulled over in Dalton Post, I think it is what it was, and camped there.
Is it colder than?
Super cold up in the mountains. That again, every day as I kept going, it just kept getting colder and colder.
Damn.
and it was mainly due to elevation.
Yeah.
But that ride from Haines to Haines Junction is one of the most like remote places. It could arguably be the most remote area that I rode on the whole trip. One of it, at least. And it was just like super, I don't know, man, just the mountains. And again, there's no houses. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like I don't know
So when you're camping out here,
it's like alpine high terrain, not many trees.
So on these camp places you're at, they're like campsites, right? So there's still people around?
There's people around, but some sites you pull up, there's nobody. And you're by yourself, and you're like, okay, there's bear around. Like, yeah, it's daylight, though. Keep in mind, again, that it doesn't get dark until you're well past asleep. So, I camped in numerous places, though, that there was nobody. And I didn't pay. It was free. I mean, most of those campsites that you have to pay for are where they have, in and out every day.
Yeah.
Some of these, it just says there's no fee. Clean up after yourself. You can leave a donation if you want, but no fee. So, yeah, but, I mean, you go to sleep in the tent, and there were some nights my tent would rustle. I'm like, what the hell was that? It'd wake you up quickly, and you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah, because you're already on edge.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
And when you're at these campsites, these remote, again, primitive campsites, there's no bear lockers. So luckily I have metal panniers on my bike, but my bike's usually pretty close to my tent. So the bear, if it's going to start smelling food, which they do, they smell it from
miles.
Yeah, fucking like sharp. It's like if this bear comes, he's going to attack my bike, and I'm right here next to it. And it was probably just raccoon or whatever, but squirrel, whatever, but they're rustling up against the side of my tent. You're asleep, and you're like, oh shit, what was that?
Yeah.
And there's nobody to help you. The only thing I have is a bottle of bear spray.
Yeah.
I don't have.
Does that shit work?
I didn't use it, so it's a bottle that looks like pepper spray, like the girl carries around or whatever.
Yeah.
Women carry around, but it's huge, and I heard it's more like a fog type spray, not like a stream. But I didn't dare spray it because they said if you spray it, it's going to get you either way. So when you spray that shit, don't play around. Spray it at the bear, but just realize that it's going to get you too.
Of the spray?
Yeah. So you're both going to go down. Or the bear's going to run off.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. But there at Haines Junction is where I met some guys that were on bicycles. I was telling you about that. These guys were from the UK. They lived in like Turkey. They were like these world travelers, right? But they were high-end bicyclists. One of these guys was like 60 years old. The other was like 30, and they were riding. So they flew into Seattle, then flew up to Fairbanks, bought bicycles, like some pretty nice bikes, right? Rode from Fairbanks to Prudhoe Bay, the northern part, and then turned around on their Prudhoe Bay is like the very northern part of Alaska.
I see it
via road. That's the Dalton Highway. It's insane. It takes days to get there, even from Fairbanks, right?
Looks like it's all ice.
Yeah, dude. That's some of the most remote area of the world.
Maybe they were trying to call it Butthole Bay. Prude Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah, and so I think the town's called Dead Horse, I think, is the name of the town that's up there. And it's mainly all just, it's all guys that are, working in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, Dead Horse, yeah.
Yeah, and the show Ice Road Truckers, that's the road.
Damn.
Or that's one of the roads.
That, to me, I don't know, man. Like, that seems so fucking badass.
Yeah. And these guys are riding bicycles from Fairbanks up to Prudhoe Bay, turned around, and then they were riding to Argentina.
Damn.
From Alaska to Argentina.
That's right. You were telling me about that shit.
They said it was going to take them 1.5 to 2 years. And they were camping every day, like spending minimal money.
There are men out there that are just fucking beasts, man.
Yeah, crazy is what they are. And again, this guy's 60 years old. He was an older guy.
Yeah.
He was in super good shape, but they were super nice. And I just had shared a campsite with them, and that's how I met them.
They had some pretty good stories, though.
Yeah, crazy stories. I mean, again, you got to be friends with this person if you're going to spend 2 years every day with them.
Yeah.
And you're going to rely on them to wait on you some days because you're dragging ass, and vice versa, cramping whatever they're getting,
Yeah, it's a lot more strenuous than just riding a bike, so.
Yeah. I couldn't ride a fucking bicycle across town, so, I mean, But
fucking Americans, we're so lazy. We need Walmarts and motors.
yeah. And so after that, man, at Haines Junction, I cruised over to the Canadian-U.S. border.
Mm-hmm. Was it?
So keep in mind, you're going across Canada into U.S., back into Canada, back into U.S., and you have to go through all these Canadian checkpoints and ask you if you have a gun. Sometimes they get you off the bike and search through all your shit, and it's just one of those things. So yeah, Beaver Creek and the Alcan border is kind of where you cross into Alaska. And the border, when you're looking at a map, there's a line that separates the Yukon Territory and Alaska. Mm-hmm. That line is there in real life as well. They've cut a swath out of trees because, again, there's just nothing but pine tree. And it's like, I don't know, not a quarter mile wide, but maybe an eighth of a mile wide swath that just goes as far as you can see.
Where was that picture you took on one of the borders? It was like you had a good, it's probably back before when you crossed into Canada is where it probably was.
Mm-hmm.
But no, so they just kind of like dug out a line down the whole fucking coast.
Yeah.
Like
they just, and again, I'm sure this was done, during World War II or whatever, but it was done a long time ago. So, but then so basically once you get past Haines Junction, which is the point that I jumped back on from Haines, mm-hmm. you go through a place called Destruction Bay, which is a lake there. If you look, and again, this is still in Canada. I know I'm going back and forth, but there's a place in Canada called Destruction Bay, and the reason it's called that is because the wind there is so brutal that during World War II, when they were building the road to Anchorage, that it was destroying stuff, like destroying rigs, like blowing trucks over, just crazy stuff.
Yeah, you're in a valley right there, so you're going to get, and then you got that, a lot of like just noticing the way like our rain patterns come in. We always have storms coming in from the northwest down south, so. And
then just the amount of gold rush and stuff that was going through there, you can see remnants. There's just stuff everywhere. Old buildings just have never been taken down. Electrical poles that look like they were built God knows when, that are like 10 foot off the ground. It's crazy, man. Little bitty electrical poles. But Destruction Bay is a cool place. That lake is amazing. And but again, that's just in the middle of nowhere, and you have to. My mind kept going back to these guys that trekked, from China or wherever during the gold rush. They're coming through California up into the Yukon, trying to find,
just anybody that back in. That's one thing I think about a lot too, and I think that riding bikes across country gives me as close to that feeling as I'll ever get in our lifetime of like that adventure, kind of cowboyish type.
And these guys are on
pioneer,
horseback, pioneer, on horseback or walking. I mean, you got Dawson, which is up in the northern part of the Yukon as well. That's a huge gold mining town that apparently still has a lot of the facade from that time with the buildings and stuff.
What was your wife's main reason to want to go to Alaska?
Bears.
She's
like, oh my God, I want to see bears. I want to see this.
Wasn't Kodiak Island not too far from?
Kodiak Island's really close to Anchorage, and that's one place that I wanted to go. We didn't get to go there because they only have ferries every. The time didn't work. Yeah. The ferry schedule didn't fit our schedule.
Yeah. But so you're just at the border now. You still got a long ass way.
I'm at the border, and again, I have to go through a state that is 3 or 4 times the size of Texas, and I damn near have to ride across half of it, right? Because Anchorage, to the west of Anchorage, there's nothing. It gets so desolate. There's a lot of fishing indigenous communities. Yeah. But if you look at Alaska and you look at Anchorage, and you can go literally directly north of Anchorage all the way to the northern part of Alaska. Go to the east of that, and that's where you're going to have all your population. To the west of Anchorage, pretty much over that way, there's just no towns. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's just nothing. You have Nome, which is out there. I think there's a military base, or used to be a military base in Nome. And there's a few towns, but if you look really closely, dude, you're 50. I think at one point, the closest point Alaska is to Russia is like 50 miles.
Over.
Something like that, yeah.
Was it Wales?
Yeah, Wales is the closest point, I believe, to Russia. But Nome is a pretty populated area. And then, but yeah, we didn't get to go to Kodiak. Kodiak's got the largest, it's, I think per square mile, has the most dense population of bear in the world. And Kodiak brown bear are huge.
Yeah.
Because they have access to fish, and that's where these brown bear really get huge, is when they have that protein access to them, versus the brown bear that are up in Fairbanks or up in the Denali National Park, which is north of Fairbanks.
Yeah, I heard like up north you have a lot more like polar bears and shit
Northwest.
like that, right? And
yeah, polar bear, man. I don't know anything about polar bear. I didn't never see any of those, but those are really way north.
Yeah.
Those things are apparently super dangerous.
Yeah, they eat people.
Yeah, they eat people, exactly. So, but so riding once I crossed the border, I went to this cool little town called Tok, T-O-K. That is kind of at a split. They have a cool little airport there. I camped out there, showers, laundry. I know I keep mentioning that. There's a cool restaurant there called Fast Eddie's that has some pretty hot chicks that you would never think that are in the middle of Alaska. Just waitresses there. It's literally like it's like the last frontier Hooters, right?
The real Twin Peaks?
Yeah, the real Twin Peaks. And it's in the middle of nowhere, a little town called Tok, T-O-K. It's literally called Tok. And I kept calling it Talk and Tuck and all this shit, and everybody kept correcting me. Hey, it's Tok. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but from there I was on Highway 2, and then I went south from there to Highway 1, which is the highway that runs all the way to Anchorage.
Nice.
So I finally made it to Anchorage, one day from Tok to Anchorage.
That's so how many? That's probably 1,000.
I don't even know how many miles. I mean, you have to look it up, but it takes a full day. So basically, again, you look at a map and you're like, oh, I can do this, no problem. But nah.
But you're also like one of the main differences that a lot of people don't think about is that when you're in territory or just in terrain like this, and you're going around mountains and going around natural things that you can't just blaze through.
Right.
Like that shit takes forever. It's like I learned that the hard way the first time I ever went to California. I was like, oh, we'll just cut across here. It'll be a lot quicker. Look, it's shorter in distance, but it's up and down, left and right, and it adds hours. Just like when you go up to one from, it just takes forever, man.
Yeah, it does, and it's deceiving. And the permafrost as well in Alaska, which is basically 6 foot down or so, is basically frozen, and that shifts and it tears the roads up. So practically every year, these roads get demolished in the winter or in the summer and winter when the ground is moving. And so you come into areas where it's dirt road for miles, and you're on the only road to Anchorage. Again, there's no other way. You're just riding on pavement, and then boom, switches to washboard dirt road.
Damn.
Yeah, and you're hitting that at 50 miles an hour. It's not safe, but and that slows you down.
At least it's always daylight. You can see it coming.
It's always daylight. Yeah. And then made my way over to Anchorage, and 10 miles outside of Anchorage was the first rain I got.
The whole time.
The whole trip. Yeah.
Wow.
And I've got Gore-Tex. I'm Gore-Texed out, right?
Yeah.
Boots, pants, jacket, and none of that shit came in handy until I got to Alaska and it started raining. And it didn't stop raining. It rained the whole fucking time we were there, pretty much.
Damn.
Yeah.
Was it like cold and raining, or is it?
Again, depends on the elevation. And Anchorage is pretty warm in the summer. While we were there, again, obviously when it rains, it's going to be a little chillier. But it was in the 70s.
Damn. Like I don't know why in my head I just don't think about it being that comfortable. I think about it like summer is like 40s and winter is
in the northern
40.
part, again, you get past the Brooks Range, which is past a town called Coldfoot up north of Fairbanks, and it stays cold up there, but it does get hot too. I mean, it just depends. The weather's so volatile. In Texas we say that the weather is super volatile, like, oh, just if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes and it'll change in Texas. Well, Texas ain't got shit on Alaska. You know what I mean?
That's pretty crazy. It's called Gates of the Arctic national park and preserve. So it's
one of
literally
one of the largest Denali, Gates of the Arctic. Those are, I think, 1 and 2 on the largest national parks. In the US.
I see Denali right here.
Yeah.
So Denali is the first mountain range, and then you go.
Yeah, Denali is where Mount
Coldfoot.
McKinley is, where Denali Mount is, Mount Denali, which is the highest peak in the U.S. Yeah, huge. But it was raining. We
Couldn't see it.
Couldn't see it. No, but we went into Denali as well.
State park, yeah.
Denali is one of my favorite state parks because of how wild it is. So Denali is one of the only state parks that you cannot drive into, like deep into it. You can drive 10 miles into it, and then you have to turn around. And it's, again, second or third largest state or national park in the U.S.
So why is it just because it's so wild? There's too much.
They want to keep it wild. So you have to take a bus, literally a school bus. And the moment you jump on that bus, you get past that 10-mile whatever mark it is, and it just turns into like fucking Jurassic Park, man. It's like, it's super wild. Like the landscape is weird looking, and there's animals everywhere, reindeer, elk, whatever, bears walking around everywhere.
There's not many cats up there.
Grizzly bears. Yeah, there's not many cats. I don't know if there's any cats in Denali. I would assume there's probably lynx in Denali. I seen a lynx actually on the road coming back from Alaska when I was on my way back, which I was told was really rare. It was crossing the road in front of me. Didn't pay any attention to me. Just kept walking like nothing. And at first I thought it was a bobcat, and I was later told there's no bobcat that far north. So, yeah.
So how long did you spend with your wife up there? What all did y'all do?
Yeah, so we kind of cruised around, went to Denali, and I wanted to kind of do the touristy thing while she was there because there were certain things she wanted to see. So we went to Denali first, and then came back to Anchorage. Anchorage was kind of our home base, right? Went to Denali, camped out in Denali a few days, and then rode back to Anchorage. And then after after Denali, we went down to Homer, which is there's a show on Discovery Channel called, I think it's called The Last Frontier, I think. I don't know. So it's the Kilcher family, which is a famous, I guess, family that lives in Alaska. My wife watches that show, so
Yeah, she wanted to check it out.
right.
It's her Breaking Bad, huh?
Right. So she wanted to go to that town, which is really cool. And I think it's the most southern point of Alaska on the west side that you can ride to or drive to. It's called Homer Spit. And
I see it.
Yeah, there's a lot of fishing boats out there, a lot of halibut. If you've ever ate halibut, dude, it's now my favorite fish.
For real?
Yeah.
I've had it. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you the difference between one fish to the other. You can put a catfish and fucking cook it just like a salmon. I'd be like, it's fucking fish.
Well, salmon definitely has a different taste than any other fish, but I'm not a big fan of
that
salmon.
ride on one seems fucking amazing from Anchorage, just carving along the mountains
carves through, and it's super windy and super cold.
For real?
Yeah. Once you get past Anchorage, south of Anchorage, it gets really cold. And again, we were getting
it's
rained
elevation
on.
basically, or
You do change elevation, and again, it's like a big peninsula.
I see that. Yeah.
So there's some gnarly views, man. And looking across the bay from Homer into the mountain ranges that are across the bay there.
The
Kachemak Bay. But looking even west over toward like Lake Clark National Park and Preserve in that area, Katmai and all that. That's where that mountain range, man, is just insane. Looking back from Homer and whatnot.
So
Kachemak is pretty crazy looking.
Can you see the bay across?
Oh yeah, you can see the mountains all the way across that.
Damn.
Yeah, they're huge. Yeah, covered in snow year round.
Damn.
Yeah, but that ride was pretty good. And then that's where, as you previously mentioned, Seward, which is the cool little town. Seward is the most northern port in Alaska that does not freeze. So that's where all your big tankers come in that bring food in the winter for Anchorage. And that's where everybody lives in the same apartment building.
Oh, is that the spot?
Yeah.
Where was that long tunnel?
That was in Seward.
That was?
Yep. So you pull off of Highway 1. There's I forgot the name of the place. It's right there, kind of south.
Primrose.
Yeah.
Moose Pass.
It's south of a place called Alaska or something like that. It sounds like it's Alaska, but it's a pretty cool place. They got some good skiing there, but there's a road that goes down. It's a one-way road, again, goes down to Seward, and you get down a little bit past the creek there, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, you pull up to a toll road, and you have to pay $15 or so to go through this tunnel, which is the longest single-lane tunnel in North America, but it's also a train tunnel. So these big tanker boats, they come into the bay, they dump all their stuff off onto the train, and then the train goes up to Anchorage. So you basically have to wait in line, and this tunnel's like 2 miles long or so, 1.5 miles, 2 miles, single lane, and it has a railroad track in it.
Yeah.
So you have to keep both wheels in a straight line.
Damn.
So, and you're in a mountain underneath a glacier. So there's a glacier over you, and so there's water just pouring down inside that tunnel everywhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say that picture you posted on it looks like it was like wet as fuck in there.
It's wet. It's just raining on you pretty much. It's wet year round in there. And again, you're on a railroad track, one way. So they don't let any of the motorcycles go in front of cars because there's been, I guess, too many people lay bikes down, and it's really hard to stop because if somebody wrecks.
Is it like a elevation change too in there? Or
No, it's flat.
It's pretty flat.
Yeah, but they make you wait and go behind all the cars.
So like you were saying, Seward is the town where you had posted a picture of a hotel where everybody in the town lived in that hotel.
It looks like a hotel. It's like a 10-story apartment building, basically. It's the only house in town, pretty much. I think there's an old army barracks there, abandoned army barracks as well. But everybody lives in this one building. The school is attached to that building. There's a store attached to that building. So in the winter,
I wonder what their community is like.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to live in that building. I can tell you that. I mean, they're just all working, I guess. They're all working on the boats, a lot of fishers and, yeah. I mean, we rode around it just kind of looking at it. Hey, everybody's living in the same building.
Yeah.
Not much to see. And there's an underground tunnel, though, that goes to the school that's attached to it, or not physically, but just right across the road.
Yeah.
And then there's a store attached to the apartment as well. So in winter, if you don't have a job and you have kids or whatever, you really literally don't have to go outside.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah. And your neighbor is, everybody's in town is your neighbor.
I mean, just like, this is probably the longest I've ever looked at Alaska, just having this conversation and with Google Maps open.
Yeah.
And it's just insane how, like,
zoom out, man, and look how big it is, and just look over at Texas, and then just keep look back and forth.
Yeah. And
it's like, wait a second.
Yeah, you can fit a lot of Texases in there.
Yeah. They say there you can only fit 3, but looking at the map, man, I'd say more than that.
It's still massive, and it's just how spread out it is, and seeing how the highway structure is to where, like, and seeing where it's populated too is right. Also
again,
real.
The majority of the people live in Anchorage, which is, in theory,
how big of the town is Anchorage?
It's not big. Yeah, I mean, have you ever been to Amarillo?
Yeah,
it's Amarillo.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's a really desolate place. I have a buddy actually that moved from Midlothian, Texas, to Anchorage.
Yeah,
my
wife's grandfather lives up there somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a small kind of setup, but
really it's people that live there are really outdoorsy. They don't want any shit. Mm-hmm. They love the outdoors, and they just don't want to deal with any mess, Yeah. And you don't really find Anchorage is a little rough, I guess. But again, it's just another one of those towns that's in the middle of nowhere that it's self-reliant, kind of like Amarillo, Lubbock, Midland.
Yeah.
Those type of towns.
So how long did you spend up there with your wife?
So my wife was there for, I want to say 7 to 10 days.
That's pretty good time.
Yeah. And then she flew back, and next day I took off.
Had to go the same route back for the most part?
So actually, no, I went north through Denali again, and then went around through Fairbanks. Mm-hmm. So I kind of just made a big loop, and then back down into Tok.
You had to go stop by that place again, see all the hot chicks?
Had to go get some good pizza and a few...
There's a town called Chicken. That's pretty cool.
There's a town called Chicken. So the story about chicken is the state bird of Alaska I forgot the name of it. It's not a chicken, but it's a weird little bird that kind of looks like a chicken, and they're everywhere. They're wild, and it's hard to pronounce the name of that bird. So besides naming the town of, whatever this town was, the name of the bird, they named it Chicken.
Fucking lazy people.
That's what I was told by the bus driver in Denali, but I guess those birds are everywhere in Denali. Yeah. Pretty gnarly. The amount of animals in Denali is just, it's one of the most wild places, I would say, in the world.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So okay, I see the route you went back to take to Fairbanks.
Yeah.
And then you cut down the Tok. And so when you went back into Canada there, did you intend to go a different route? Because I know you went through Calgary and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, so I did. So obviously came back through Fairbanks, down through Tok, and then back through Whitehorse and all the way down to Watson Lake, which is then me passing 37 and jumping on Highway 97, and then making my way south. From there is where I started hitting a lot of the forest fires, because on the way up, I didn't get any forest fire. I didn't get any smoke, nothing. I think I got a little smoke when I was in Yosemite. I think the fire had just started there. But
yeah, they had a massive one over there in Yosemite.
I was leaving when that fire was starting, luckily. So,
dude, last year, we drove up to NorCal, me and my brother, to deliver some parts and pick up some more bikes to paint. And that's when Napa was on fire.
Yeah.
And I took my brother to San Francisco that time, and we just got smoked out. Even in San Francisco, you could see all the shit going over the bay. And so we were like there, we were taking pictures, having a good time, but we were driving down to Venice Beach that night.
Wow.
Dude, we got to Venice Beach and we were just fucking choked out, sick feeling.
Yeah. Same way. I mean, I'm riding a bike too. Like,
so you're right there.
It's hitting me all in the face. I had to keep my visor shut most of the time because I wear contacts. And like, man, contacts were drying out from the smoke. So I just had to keep my visor shut and just keep putting drops in my eyes. But as soon as I got to Watson Lake is when I really started looking like, oh shit, it's going to rain. But then I realized it wasn't rain. It was walls of clouds of smoke, black smoke. So then I knew I was in for it. But I rode through smoke for, man, I would say a week.
Damn.
Yeah, straight. It ruined basically my trip south through Canada, through Calgary. It kind of ruined a lot of the things I wanted to see, which was Banff, which is huge, tourism. I could see a lot of it, and some days it would be clearer than others. And Banff was a little clearer than northern Calgary, but north of Calgary, Alberta. But yeah, some places. I left a place called Grand Prairie one day, and it was daylight. It was daylight, but you couldn't see the sun. Right? It's kind of like it's daylight,
like an eclipse.
Right. And then I leave out of Grand Prairie, and when you leave out of Grand Prairie, the elevation changes up pretty high, and it turned black. It turned literally dark. Yeah, and I think I posted that video, but literally,
I saw that video.
Literally, you're driving, and it's like it's dark outside, and that lasted for a few hours, and then all of a sudden, back into daylight.
That's wild.
Yeah,
that is so crazy.
Yeah, forest fires were monsters this year.
That sucks. So did you go into Edmond and all that stuff, or did you stay along the mountain?
Yeah, so I was in Grand Prairie, and I went to a bar one night, and one of the bartenders was like, whatever you do, don't go into Edmonton. That's the worst city in Canada. It's like just high crime, and like you don't want to go. There's nothing there. It's like, okay, well, I'll just go around Edmonton and go into Banff and Jasper, which are the national parks, kind of the northern Rockies.
Yeah.
And dude, it was really, at that point I was getting close to the end of my trip as well, and it was getting colder. At night it would get into 30 sometimes. I woke up one time and it was like high 20s.
Damn.
And it's like, this ain't for me,
Yeah, riding in 20 sucks.
Yeah, your hands, and I've got heated grips, but it doesn't. It ain't helping.
So you can pretty much just ride right through the valleys there.
Yep. All
the way through Banff and come into Calgary.
Right. And British Columbia is beautiful, man. Once you cross into Alberta, it changes, Is
it more grasslands, kind of like it is in the United States?
It's Texas. Yeah, they call Alberta the Texas of Canada. So there's a lot of oil and gas stuff. They have the oil sands up there. There's a lot of You know, up against the mountains, you get a lot of logging trucks, but it's mainly just 18-wheelers that are hauling oil and gas.
Yeah, Calgary's not too far from the border either, so.
And it's not far from Banff. If you want to see beautiful Canada, man, I always have told people that, fly into Calgary. Calgary's a nice town. It's it's a little hot and desolate, but it's
kind of like a Denver.
Yeah, it's like a Denver, exactly. Yeah. It reminded me a lot of Denver. And then, you ride into Banff from there. It's a really short ride. Mm-hmm. You can go up to Jasper as well. Pretty much there's a highway that runs 93 that runs down through Jasper all the way to Banff, which is just an amazing ride. If you're gonna do that, you're definitely gonna take that.
Yeah, I'm looking at Edmond now, and now that you're saying that it's like Texas, going to Edmond would just be flat lands.
Edmonton is just nothing, man. Yeah. It's out of the way. So again, coming out of Grand Prairie, what I did is just went south, hit Jasper. I forgot the name of that damn highway. Icefields Parkway or something like that. There's a lot of glaciers, etc., that are down 93 into Banff. Banff's a beautiful town. Small little town. It's it's got this German feel to it almost, the buildings.
Yeah.
But I had a good time there. But the smoke was kind of following me the whole way. So it did ruin a little bit of the view. Mm-hmm. Then I rode into Calgary and then back into the U.S., man. Crossed back into the U.S. The lady at the border, I crossed through at Carway, which is a small little border crossing.
Right there next to Glacier National Park. Did you check any of that out?
Yeah, so Glacier had a huge forest fire. Oh, they had it shut off. Like you couldn't even if I wanted to go in, mm-hmm. they wouldn't let me ride in. Huge forest fire. So again, forest fires kind of derailed my trip on the way back down, but at that point I couldn't really bitch,
Yeah, you saw a lot of cool shit. So I mean, you still had a little bit of time left on it. So you got in the United States, and and I saw you went through Yellowstone at some point.
Yellowstone's beautiful. It was again getting pretty cold, but man, I went through Montana into I think it was Helena, Campton, Helena, and then took off early from Helena and then made it down to the northern part of Yellowstone, which most people come into the west side of Yellowstone through West Yellowstone. I went through Bozeman down 90 and then cut straight down and stayed at what they called was the nicest, most lowest elevated campground in Yosemite, so it didn't get very cold, mm-hmm. but it was still cold. Yeah. So, but that's where the visitors museum is. Yellowstone's pretty gnarly, man.
Dude, I plan to ride through there, but it sucks because the main trip I was going to try to do that next year. It's May, end of April. So, I mean, you're pretty much right there. It's still too cold. It's still going to be snowed out. You won't be able to drive through it at all. So, you got to do that in the summertime, huh?
Yeah, short window. They were telling me in Alaska, man, that they have 4-month windows.
For real?
Yeah, so most of the stuff in Alaska is only open for 4 months, and then everything shuts down. So all tourism pretty much just comes to a halt.
Well, it's got to be fucking just eerie and sad.
Sad. I met young guys, like, just sitting down eating lunch at, like, Subway or whatever, talking to guys. This one young guy asked me where I was coming from, and this was in Whitehorse as well. And I was like, what is it like here in the winter? I was like, what's the coldest you've ever experienced? He's like, probably about -30 Fahrenheit. -30 Fahrenheit. Yeah. And I was like, how does that feel? He's like, well, you can only spend a few minutes outside, and then you have to go back inside. Mm. And then at that point, you've got 6-foot snow drifts, and it gets daylight 4 hours a day. And in the winter, it's the complete opposite. There's no daylight.
Wow, I didn't know.
So in the summer, you have 4 hours of night, 4 or 5 hours of darkness, and then in the winter, you have 4 or 5 hours of daylight.
That would definitely have to be like a very mind fuck of like, just keeping your shit together. Right.
And what do? I mean, you got to go to work. You wake up, go to work, and enjoy the 4 hours of sunlight and from 10 to 2 or whenever it is, and then it gets dark again.
Damn.
And it's cold.
Yeah.
20 degrees is pretty hot for them in the winter.
Damn, they're all sweating out there like, fuck, man. In T-shirts.
Yeah, insane.
So did you just basically beeline it from there home after Yellowstone, or did you stop anymore?
Yellowstone, I went through Salt Lake.
Love Salt Lake.
Yeah. Met up with the guys remember the Cuban guy I was telling you about?
Yeah.
Yeah, met up with them. They were still in Salt Lake. Salt Lake's beautiful.
So those are the guys you met in
Alaska.
Yep. And they were
still in. So the Cuban guy was having his bike worked on because he was still having problems with the KTM, and he was staying with David. And so
that's cool though. That's cool that you met him there, and then you were able to kind of catch him on the same trip. That's pretty dope.
Stayed with them there in Salt Lake and had a few beers, rode up through Park City, which right now actually it may have been last weekend or yesterday, was the KTM rally through Park City. They have a huge KTM rally every year there, and thousands of KTMs, adventure bikes, right through there, Park City. And that's where pretty much, I'm not a big skier, but I've been told that the best skiing in the U.S. is kind of just right there in Park City. So, and then obviously, what is that, in the west side of Denver.
I guess they're picking up trash right now. That's what everybody's hearing. Yeah, me and my wife drove through Salt Lake on the way to California earlier this year in May, and it was a pretty cool town. Like I was kind of going into it thinking like, oh, this is the super Christian part of the world,
Mormon capital, and it is,
or not Christian, but just religious as fuck. And,
right,
I didn't get the vibe though. Of course we went to the mall, chilled for a minute. Ate some food and then dipped out and went to the Salt Flats. And
either. I mean, David, one of the guys, the guy that was riding the BMW, Fausto, the Cuban guy with the KTM, David is actually a police officer in Salt Lake, and he says the crime is really high there. Like, for real? Yeah, they have a lot of homeless. So, I didn't get the vibe either that it was super religious, but apparently it is.
So which way did you go after that? Like you just...
So out of Salt Lake, I went back through Park City, which would have been, I guess, through 80, and then went down through 40, past the Strawberry Reservoir, which is amazing, high alpine lake that is kind of southeast of Salt Lake, little lake there. And then took a right and went down 191, it looks like, through all the way down to Green River, which is Highway 70. I was told, actually, no, I'm wrong. So I went to past Grand Junction. Actually, yeah, so I took Highway 40 or 191, I guess is what it changes to 40 and 191 back and forth, all the way until it dead ends pretty much in
Colorado.
Yeah, dead ends in Colorado, but dead ends into 70, kind of. And I was told I wanted to ride 70 because I've never been skiing, Breckenridge, and Keystone and all those hot spots, Vail. I'd never been through there. That highway was beautiful. I don't know if you've ridden that highway, but...
I haven't. That's why I was, like, my trip I'm planning for next year, I was really trying to, the other guy we did this road trip podcast with, he did a lot of Colorado to California, and, man, it just seems like it's right there. It's not that far from here, and there's you could literally spend
2 days. You can get to Denver in 2 days easy.
Oh, dude, we get in a day all the time.
Yeah.
When we ride to Sturgis, we usually ride from here to Denver or here to Cheyenne. Yeah. The first day. Yeah. Just to knock out the miles since we're kind of all ready to go.
Exactly.
So did you just kind of like I know from Grand Junction you can head south from there and do the $1 Million Highway down to what is that fucking town? Durango.
Right. I didn't do that.
It's supposed to be one of the nicest highways in America.
Really? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I met a guy. Actually, one of the guys I met in Yosemite had a house in Durango. He highly recommended it as well. But I was told that cruise down 70 to Denver, you'll enjoy it. So I went over.
That's a nice ride. I've driven it, but
went over to Denver and then went south from there. Just taking back roads, and hit Pikes Peak.
Yeah, it's just cool. Yeah. I tried to get my brother to ride with me up to the top, and he wouldn't do it. So
why is that?
He'd only been riding bikes for 3 months, and I made him ride to Sturgis. So I was kind of pushing him harder than
Should have been.
And he was like, we went through the Raton Pass into Trinidad, I think it is, and he kind of freaked out because that was the first time he'd ever ridden in any kind of like mountains.
Yeah.
And of course, he's only been riding for 3 months, and here I am blazing through it and fucking having a good time, and he's just freaking out.
Dragging pegs, and so I hit a Pikes Peak, went to the top, and then kind of just made my way back down. And then made my way into Pueblo, which is kind of nothing there either. And then cut over, trying to stay on back roads as much as possible, you know?
Yeah, it's a lot funner, man.
Yeah, I went through a little town called La Junta, which is a cool little place in eastern Colorado. You get into some pretty cool grasslands. Yeah. Which was a nice change of scenery after being in the mountains for months. Get into some like cool waving, rolling hill grasslands. And
that's one thing about like northwest Nebraska that I think people don't really know about, because every time we leave Sturgis and we come through northwest Nebraska, it's fucking beautiful. Yeah. And then you get to east Nebraska and it's just fucking sucks. But you know,
I've never been to Nebraska.
It's just like some of those grasslands, when you have some hills, rolling hills, they're fucking nice.
Yeah. There's some of that up in northern Montana.
For real? Yeah. Wyoming, all that shit.
Yeah, coming across the border there, the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, right outside of Glacier National Park, is beautiful rolling hills. Nothing out there. A bunch of cowboys. Bunch of horses. And then from there, man, just made my way down to Amarillo. I have family in Amarillo, and stayed a few days there, and then cut back across.
Made it back.
That's all she wrote. As soon as I got to Amarillo, it was 100 degrees, and I was like, oh, shit, here we go. Coming from Colorado, 70, 80 degrees. And quickly reminded myself what it feels like here in Central Texas. Like all of July was like 105, 110 is what it felt like. It was miserable here.
And the whole time I'm like, I got nothing done work-wise because I spent, it was fucking miserable, you know? And you see my shop, there's no back door, so it's just like a fucking...
No airflow, no AC.
Just a pocket of heat.
Yeah.
But no, it's
Is that good for paint?
I mean, I would paint at certain times when it was cooler. You know what I mean? Like at night when it's 90 degrees or 100 degrees. You have different chemicals you can put in the paint to react at different temperatures. You really just have problems with like humidity.
I figured
when
that.
It's like after it just rained on a hot day, like you're asking for problems. But so what about this trip? Like, looking back on it now, like, do you ever like wake up now and be like, I miss being on that freedom of that now that you're back here at work running the business again and back doing all this day-to-day shit? Is there like any like you almost felt more alive at that point, or you felt like or a nice balance of the two?
It's a nice balance, man, because one thing that I did realize is that's a long trip. 70 days on a bike every day, it can start to wear on you. And missing home, missing my bed, having to blow up a fucking mattress every night or sleeping pad every night, sleeping in a tent most of the time. I miss my bed, but also just the memories and the people and the way the things there's certain things, and I don't know if everybody's this way, but when I'm riding, I'll see something and I will never forget that certain thing. It's like it's something that sticks in my mind, kind of like, as I mentioned numerous things, but Destruction Bay, like that lake that just has so much history and stuff like that, man. Those little things always come back to you randomly when you see something that reminds you of it. But like you said, it's a good balance. 70 days, I think, may have been too long. But again, I don't regret it. I could have kept going. If I lived further south, I would have kept riding. What I mean?
Well, I kind of want to do one of those next year too. I was talking to my wife about doing something like that and kind of doing a little tour. We were talking about doing it in our van, which is still on the table, but it just getting away for a while. I think maybe it does give you an appreciation that for what you do have, like when you're at home and you're getting ready to take the trip, you're more pissed off at the shit that you have going on, and then when you're on the road, you're doing all the shit you have been dreaming about, and it's amazing. Right. But it balances it out to where when you come back, you can you're refreshed. Know, and that's why I feel like when I take trips often, even if they're like 3-day weekend trips or 4-day weekend trips riding around, I feel refreshed. I feel like I broke up the cycle. especially in my job where it's this creative thing where you got to constantly be creative and redesign. So if I was to go 2 months straight of just designing paint jobs and doing them, I think that those paint jobs have more similarities than if I took a break between them.
Of course.
So it's like this necessary evil of just getting away and checking out for a while and structuring your life in a way that you can do that.
Yeah, and certain people require more of that. Like I'm one of those people that I have to, like, again, that job I quit and went to Columbia.
What was the job that you were doing?
It was similar. So the business I own is we provide internet to like rural areas through wireless technology, similar to cell phone. And that's what I was doing, working in IT basically, working with computers, sitting at a desk all day, dealing with routing and just networking. And it gets stale. And then, I was like, I want to change. And that's when I went to Columbia, and it kind of lit a fire to mix it with, again, motorcycles. And then obviously me and my brother and a few buddies started a business, and it's like, man, you have this freedom now to where you can feel safe to, hey, you guys, I'm going to be gone for 60 days. And my brother and all the guys are like, man, just do it.
Yeah.
And they're fine with it,
Yeah, it's cool.
And I'm a pretty stressful person too, to be honest with you. My job's really stressful because we provide a service, and it's a service that somebody pays a monthly reoccurring rate for. So they expect, it's like, hey, if your internet sucks, you're gonna be pissed off. I mean, you can't do this podcast without good internet. You know what I mean? So, and I understand that, and I take that really seriously, and so it stresses me out a lot. And writing,
making sure the customers are happy with your services, that it is very stressful because ultimately you want people to be satisfied with what you're providing. And but no, I think that's one way of looking at a business as it's successful, because you're able to build it and you've put the right people in there, or you're involved with it with the right people who are helping run it when you are not there, so you can still make a living.
And I have 100% trust in all the guys I work with, and I'm luckily able to do that. And they're luckily, fine with me leaving for 2 months and coming back, and everything's the same, and I can start fresh. And it does help with the stress and stuff, most definitely. And I'm sure it helps, like you said, with your creative juices.
Yeah, it's just that, it's just, I feel like if you work your ass off all the time, you have to be able to reward yourself with something that you want. I mean, for everybody, it's different. Some people, it might be a new phone or new shoes or a new car or whatever, but there's something like amazing about experiences, you know what I mean? And recharging yourself and getting those experiences. And I like, as sad as it is, Instagram is what pushed me into realizing this shit exists.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been a fan of geography, but man, once you hit high school, once you start having to work, it's hard to sit back and go pick up a National Geographic.
Right. And there's the website I was telling you about, ADV Writer. Yeah, advwriter.com or .net, whatever. They have a forum on there that's called Epic Rides or something like that. And dude, there's people, the people that really, really blew my mind was this Canadian couple. I think their website is called ride.com, RIDEDOT or something like that, .com. And this guy, I think he was born in Malaysia or something, and his wife's from, I want to say Croatia, but they are Canadian citizens. They sold all their shit, everything they had, house and everything, and with the Canadian real estate market booming. And then they've been on the road now for 7 years. Yeah. They started in Canada, went to Alaska, turned around, went all the way to the south. I think something happened where they couldn't go all through Brazil, and then they shipped their bikes over to Europe, and they've been on the road, man. I'm pretty sure they're at the end of their trek, but they've damn near, 7 years, 8 years. Yeah.
The amount of people that they're going to meet, the amount of stories, and just the amount of influence and cultures. Yeah. Dude, that's amazing.
It's, again, life-changing.
So other than like planning to move to Costa Rica, is there any other...
Colombia.
Sorry, Colombia. I knew it started with C. Yeah. Is there any other like trips in the world that like is on your bucket list at some point that you want to try to like work towards?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, they will ship their bike. There's a few guys that I follow on a regular on Instagram or ADV Writer, but I really want to do Italy. Italy's always been like one of those things where it's just one of those countries that every city has a different culture. Yeah. And Italy at the same time so close to Switzerland. Yeah. France, Spain. Yeah, I would. Dude, that'd blow my mind. I can only imagine. Croatia, like those countries, all through that, and Greece, all through that area. Man, I could only imagine. That's way, way, way in the future, and it may not ever happen. I mean, I'm a married man, so I'd probably have to ride 2 up, and my wife doesn't ride. So, other than that, Colombia is going to probably happen within a year or 2, and then I use Colombia as my home base, and I'll be able to ride around South America from there.
That's cool. Yeah, I want to do the Argentina thing. That sounds fucking. I heard this guy named, I think I was telling you about it, another friend of mine's podcast, Danger Dan. He did a podcast with a guy named Marcus Best, and he just talked about riding all the way down to the southern tip. It's called like
Patagonia or Eurasia or something like that.
Just like that one spot you're talking about, Alaska, where it's like that last spot.
Yeah.
And there's like a bar there, and it's like the end of the world kind of thing.
End of the road, yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of, that feels, that there's something nostalgic about that to me, that like, fuck, man, I've been to the end of the line.
Yeah.
And with this bike shit on this road in this continent, like, it is weird, like, you know, I talk to a lot of people about these type of ideas, but as you ride bikes and as you stay in the motorcycle industry, you know, or just stay in the motorcycle hobby, you're constantly evolving and finding new ways that motorcycles make you happy with them, right? So when we were younger, we were on these sport bikes. We were
riding wheelies, hauling ass down the highway.
And that shit was perfect for us at the time, you know? But then you grow up and you know, some of that shit is still there, but you start looking at, like, you start getting cultured. You know, you start finding that, oh shit, I can enjoy all these adult things on a child-like fucking item, like a bike, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so, like, it constantly reignites a fire of being connected to motorcycles, and it can push you and drive you. I mean, otherwise, like I said, man, I don't pity anybody, but I'm like, fuck, man, like, I'd hate for my life to be like, work all day to own a house and a car. Yeah. And
no way.
And then every year there's a new car better, and every year there's a new neighborhood down the street that just got built, and your house is the old house now. So it's like this material thing that doesn't. I don't see an end game to it. I don't see an end game with motorcycles either, because there's a material aspect to it, but there's a lot more experience, in my opinion. You know. And
again, you combine the traveling thing with motorcycles, and it opens up a whole nother world. Yeah, and my brother, I mean, he's a married man with kids, and he's in that same little, you know, and they travel a little bit as well. They're more cruise people as well, but, you know, if I can always say, hey, if you want to see something and feel something, jump on a bike.
There's got to be a way. I think that, you know, I've been talking with a couple close friends about this, and I don't have it figured out, and I could be completely wrong, you know, because I still think, regardless of whether or not you're married or whether you have kids, you still have to find time to really give yourself the things that you want to continue to feel like you have purpose, other than, you know, being a husband or a father or a provider. But I just, maybe a part of me just doesn't want to accept the fact, okay, I have too much responsibilities now, I'm not allowed to enjoy my life. Like, I feel like there's got to be a way around that, to where you can still be responsible but still find time, whether it's once every 5 years, that you get to do a trip, or you get to embark on a journey that you want for yourself, you know?
Yeah, when you're 80 years old, man, you're not going to say, oh, fuck, I remember that house, or I remember that car, or whatever. You're going to be more like, I remember that trip, you know?
Yeah, that trip, that experience.
Yeah.
You know, I could see a house. And like having a family grow up there and things like that, but I don't know. I mean,
that $1 million or whatever, when you're 80 years old, you're not going to remember that.
There's got to be a way to balance out, like, doing the things that inspire you to be happy, or what you think might make you happy, and being a good husband and being a good father, you know? And I've always said that, like, a good husband and a good father is just a happy person. Yeah. You know? Just because you pay the bills and just because you come home every day, if you're a miserable prick every day, that's not creating a great life for the family around you, you know? Right. So I don't know. There's both sides of that thing.
1,000 ways to live a happy life, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate you telling us all this, man. I was really excited about it. You know, hell, I knew you just doing the Colombia.
Yeah.
I was about to say Costa Rica.
Don't say Costa Rica. Yeah.
I know you talk, seeing you do that stuff. I finding a way to kind of bring people like our audience into like listen about these travel things, because this shit's it's attainable. Like it's not like it's not like, fuck man, I'm trying to save up to buy a yacht. You know what I mean?
It's not really that expensive. I mean, you
got to plan it.
You got to plan it, and when you got to stick to your budget when you're on the road. There's days that you don't spend anything but fuel. Buy a 6-pack of beer, buy some water and your food for the day, and it'll last you a few days or whatever. Buy fuel, and costs nothing.
Yeah, and I think that with all this connectivity with social media and just the chat rooms like you were talking about, like people can get inspired and they can find the information they want to do trips, even if it's just in the U.S., man. Like I said, if you're not going to another country, that's cool. There's plenty of shit.
We live in the third largest country in the world, right?
Yeah.
Canada is the second largest country in the world, and it's our neighbor. So and Mexico's not small either. And Mexico the Mexican culture is so strong, and that's why in all honesty, I've thought many times of just doing a trip through Mexico and then coming back and then just on the way to Colombia, just beeline through Mexico, because Mexico, literally, you could spend a month in Mexico easy. Yeah,
I want to ride the western coast and then go all the way down and then kind of come up the eastern coast.
Go through Baja, cut over, and then loop through the bottom.
What is it like? Veracruz?
Yeah,
and
Veracruz.
All that shit.
Yep.
But
Acapulco's all through there, and then and then cut up through the city. And I've been to Mexico City, and I've been to certain towns inland, but like Guanajuato and those towns, and they're beautiful. But Mexico is so big, and the food's amazing. And I've heard that it's super cheap.
Yeah,
like it's just one of the cheapest countries to travel in on this side of the world.
So on like your overall assessment of like your bike, the BMW, like you think it?
No problems. Yeah, changed tires one time. Like I said, in California, did change my chain. My chain got 15,000 miles on it, started slacking a little bit, and I knew I had to make it home, and that was in Alaska. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I changed my chain in Alaska, and other than that, man, bike's perfect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's chain driven, high suspension, off-road, on-road, rides like a dream. Mm-hmm. No problems.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Well, shit. What's your Instagram name?
Yeah. So my name's Thurston. It's a little difficult, but
a little play on words there.
Yeah. And my Instagram name is THURSTY. So thirsty with a U, and then my last name Taylor.
Nice. Yeah, I've been trying to tell people to check you out. Like I was telling people on the podcast, like, man, check this guy out. He's on his trip. He's posting some amazing stories. Yeah. I think that if you can just compile all the stories that you had took.
Dude, I have so much content. Like that video I took today, I have over 1,000 photos. I haven't posted probably 200 videos or so.
Yeah.
But you have to edit a lot of that stuff, and I just haven't had time since I've been back.
Yeah. I'm just like, man, I was blown away by it, and just that visual content is, very...
The drones, man. The drone is an amazing invention, right? And the new DJIs are so compact, you can throw them in a bike and carry them around like a fucking cell phone. Yeah,
I want to do one. I don't know. I'm really trying to get into like all this like video stuff, because we're trying to move this podcast into a YouTube setting to where we do video podcasts,
kind of like the Joe Rogan thing.
Yeah, right. And what we also want to create like a vlog based on like the bike builds and the bike paint jobs, and then just the other shit that we have going on.
Take it to a different level.
Yeah, like show people all the aspects of what we do at our shop, or just our perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm actively spending the rest of this year teaching myself how to edit videos.
Yeah, which is not easy.
Yeah, to the best of my ability. And just like this podcast, when we first got it out, like it was a learning curve and pain, and we're still growing with it. So that's the same thing that's going to happen with our video content. Is it as we grow and we get better at the skills of doing this shit, like our content's going to get better. But it's fun, man. Like I don't really see a lot of other motorcycle guys out there that are. It's maybe an unfair advantage for us because of what we do for a living. Like a lot of people that do what we do technically don't have time to do this shit.
Right.
Like I don't really have time to do it, but I've been structuring my business and my lifestyle to work, because when you're doing 10 helmets or 20 helmets or 20 bikes a year, you get really worn down, like creatively, whatever the fuck. I'm not even try that one. So you get worn down. So if you can kind of like get the price up to where you can do less of those but still make the same money, it'll free up your time so that you're not constantly like drained.
And the work you do, man, like I said, you painted a bike for me a long time ago. Now I won't mention how much I paid for that, but you should be charging a lot more. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I mean it's just one of those things, you know. Like I said, we there's a new wave of like this internet and all this shit going on. There's just like this new world that we're already in it, but it's just going to get more dense the longer it goes. And I think that there's a way that you can also, you know, make a living to where you're still painting bikes or helmets and you're still building bikes, but you can mesh the two together and do less of each, but create something that's interesting for people. You know what I mean? Just like what on your trips, just like all the other people that I watch on YouTube that are traveling, there's a kid out there, like, or a guy or a chick or whatever, that's like wanting to be creative and they like bikes, and they might find that same thing that I'm getting by watching you on your trip. They might get that through us. And, you know what I mean? So it's just like this big circle of life of inspiring each other and shit like that.
And you can do it, most definitely.
Cool. Well, hey, I appreciate it. I won't take up too much more of your time. And you guys follow him. It's fucking awesome. Another thing, man, like before we go, like it blows my mind, like the people that I meet or know that have just so much amazing like shit on their stuff, and it's like they just don't get the engagement from everybody.
Yeah, and I don't put enough into it. But true. Yeah, definitely follow me again, Thurstytaylor with a U.
There you go. All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
We'll catch you later. Hope you guys enjoyed that. That was awesome, man. I can't tell you enough how thankful I am that he came in and told us that story. It was awesome. So also want to thank our sponsors, TexasPerformanceMC.com, as well as on Instagram, Paint Huffer Metal Flake on IG, and PaintHuffer.com, HorsepowerInc.net, Horsepower Inc. on Instagram, and Horsepower Inc. Indy on Facebook. Also, don't forget about HDTwin.com and Hard Drive Parts on Instagram if you want to get laced up with any of these companies that help support this podcast. Check those guys out and, help us out. Anyway, thank you guys for checking out this podcast. We got more coming this month. A little slow rolling. We're getting back in the swing of getting some work done, but these podcasts are coming. Also, if you're in DFW, come down to the bike night, Anvil Pub, 8 p.m. on Tuesdays. We go up there and we just talk, and that's it. It's more of a talk night. Obviously, that's what we like to do, right? Anyway, check all this shit out. Thanks for supporting us. If you like these podcasts, share them, review them, like them, put them in your stories, put them on your IG, put them on your Facebook. It all helps us grow, So thank you guys, and you enjoy your week, motherfuckers.